Chapter 575. The first item. Spiritual sage Ling Zun let out a long roar and presented a jade box. Although the jade box was sealed, Chu Fengmian could sense the extremely pure spiritual energy contained within it. In addition to the spiritual energy, there was also an extremely rich vitality contained within. Some old people who were about to die could probably live for another 10 years just by smelling it. This life force was definitely denser than anything else. Everyone, please take a look. Spiritual sage Ling Zun slowly opened the jade box. Inside, there was a 3-inch branch lying quietly. This branch was incomparably green. Although it was only 3 inches long, it seemed to be alive. The spiritual energy and extremely rich life force were emitted from the 3-inch tree branch. Builder tree? The moment Chu Fengmian saw the branch, he suddenly blurted out a word. Oh? Young Master Chu was quite knowledgeable. Elderly was slightly surprised when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. This is the branch of the builder tree, the greatest tree in the world. The branch of the builder tree, such a thing actually appeared. Chu Fengmian was also extremely surprised. The builder tree was known as the greatest tree in the world during the Desolate Era. It was said to be the root of the world. Many of the various creatures in the world were born from the builder tree. In the Desolate Era, the builder tree was said to have been destroyed by an extremely huge war. Now that hundreds of thousands of years had passed, it was unexpected that a branch of the builder tree would appear. This branch of the creation tree contains an endless amount of life force. Once it is refined and merged with one's body, it will be refined into a body similar to the bloodline of the battle dragon. No matter what kind of injuries one suffers, one will be able to recover. It's almost impossible to die. Chu Fengmian secretly thought. If he could get this branch of the builder tree and use the sacred sacrifice together, it would be enough to make Chu Fengmian's recovery ability even stronger. If he really couldn't kill Chu Fengmian in one move, with the battle dragon bloodline and the power of the builder tree, it would be enough to directly recover. The branch of the builder tree, if anyone can get this thing and refine it into their body, they will almost obtain an immortal body. The sky-reaching pavilion actually took this thing out for auction. I must get this branch of the builder tree. With it, I will be extremely safe in the void ocean. Down below, countless martial artists were excited when they saw the builder tree branch. Each and every one of them wanted to fight for it. I wonder if Elderly has any thoughts of fighting for this builder tree branch? Chu Fengmian looked at Elderly beside him. His expression didn't change much. Although the creation tree branch is good, if you want to obtain it, you have to pay a lot of money. Elderly shook his head and said. Although a creation tree branch like this is sufficient to allow one's vitality to surge greatly after fusing with one's body, it will still take some time for one to recover from fatal injuries. When true experts fight, victory or defeat is decided in an instant. This builder tree branch actually doesn't have much use. Spending a huge amount of wealth to buy it is not worth it. What Elderly said was the weakness of the builder tree branch. For example, when one's strength reached the high level of life and death stage, victory and defeat could be decided in a single breath. There was simply no time to slowly recover from their injuries. Not only Elderly, but many people in the surrounding skyboxes also didn't have any thoughts of bidding for it. However, this was only normal. For Chu Fengmian, who had the battle dragon bloodline, his recovery ability was extremely strong. With this builder tree branch, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. When the time came, he could recover all his injuries in an instant. Compared to the undying demon Venerable, it was much more terrifying. The first item, the builder tree branch. The starting price is 10,000 spiritual stones. Spiritual Venerable saw that everyone's emotions were ignited and also spoke at the appropriate time. 10,000 spiritual stones referred to low-grade spiritual stones. The price of a king-grade spiritual stone was around 10,000 spiritual stones. As for a royal-grade spiritual stone, it was worth 1,000,000 spiritual stones. 20,000 spiritual stones. 30,000 spiritual stones. 50,000 spiritual stones. Shouts could be heard from the crowd below. One after another, venerable martial artists bid. After all, the builder tree branch was the branch of the number one tree in the world. Its value would definitely not be lower than 100,000 spiritual stones. The price of 10,000 spiritual stones was precisely to let everyone participate and ignite the atmosphere. The price soared all the way and soon reached 100,000 spiritual stones. This price was no longer something that some martialists could afford. 200,000. Chu Fengmian saw that the bidding was gradually slowing down and suddenly shouted a price. If Chu Fengmian obtained this builder tree branch, it would indeed bring him a lot of benefits. What Chu Fengmian lacked the least right now was wealth. As long as it was beneficial to him, he would obtain everything in this auction. Young Master Chu is actually interested in the builder tree branch? Elderly saw Chu Fengmian bid and was somewhat surprised. He had seen Chu Fengmian's strength. This kind of strength was close to high-level life and death realm. The builder tree branch's effect on Chu Fengmian should be extremely limited. After all, it's the branch of the number one tree in the world. It's fine to buy it for fun. Anyway, it won't cost much. Chu Fengmian smiled casually and said. This sentence made elderly speechless. 200,000 spiritual stones was the price of 20 king-grade spiritual stones. This kind of wealth was squandered for fun. Even elderly wouldn't dare to do something so extravagant. Sensing elderly's gaze, Chu Fengmian didn't care about it at all. The builder tree branch naturally had its uses, and Chu Fengmian was too lazy to explain. Anyway, his current image was that of a nouveau riche, so he might as well be thorough. 200,000 spiritual stones. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price? After Chu Fengmian shouted 200,000, the scene became much quieter. This price was no longer something that many of the people below could afford. Furthermore, even if they were able to afford it, very few people would be willing to pay such a huge price to purchase a treasure of little value like the creation tree branch. The person in the heaven box is actually willing to pay such a huge price to buy this builder tree branch. The people in the heaven box are all big shots. This builder tree branch shouldn't be of much use to them. Maybe he's a young master of some big force. Forget it. Let's not talk about it. We can't afford to offend the people in the heaven box. The cultivators below discussed. Amidst the silence, a voice suddenly rang out. 300,000 spiritual stones. This voice came from the heaven box next to Chu Fengmian. Chapter 576. What? Someone actually made a bid? It's the heaven room again? Although the creation tree branch is precious, it's not very useful to the real big shots. Why would someone compete for it? Hearing that someone had made a new bid, there was an uproar below. Oh? 400,000 spiritual stones. Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised and also reported a new number, 500,000 spiritual stones. Before Chu Fengmian's voice died away, another bid came from the number 10 room beside him. This builder tree branch was generally priced at 100,000 spirit stones, which was already the limit. He didn't expect that it would be snatched up to a sky-high price of 500,000. Who's the person in number 10 room? Is he here to compete with me for the creation tree branch? Chu Fengmian frowned. According to Chu Fengmian's estimation, no one should be able to compete with him for the creation tree branch when he had made a bid of 200,000 spiritual stones. However, the number was rising steadily. Although Chu Fengmian did not care about this amount of wealth, it still made him frown. The number 10 room should belong to the Earth Yuan Pavilion. However, the voice doesn't belong to the Earth Yuan Pavilion. It should be an outsider. Elderly slowly opened his mouth and said. To be able to get a private room in Earth Yuan Pavilion, this person must have a powerful background. What should we do? It seems that this person is determined to get the creation tree branch. Bai Xian said in a low voice. She knew that Chu Fengmian had obtained a lot of wealth from the ancient dragon emperor Yan Cave. However, she did not know why he would spend so much wealth for a creation tree branch. It doesn't matter. I'd like to see who dares to compete with me. Chu Fengmian snorted. His wealth was almost endless. He would like to see who dared to compete with him for the creation tree branch, 600,000 spiritual stones. Chu Fengmian shouted out another sky-high price. At the same time, Chu Fengmian's spiritual consciousness shuttled out. The restriction in the room could not stop Chu Fengmian's spiritual consciousness at all. It allowed him to sneak into number 10 room. There were many young warriors in room 10. They were all quite young, and the strongest among them was sitting on a high throne. Countless martial artists in the surroundings surrounded him like stars around the moon, flattering him. These cultivators were all wearing the same golden robes. The word desolate was very conspicuous on their robes. Chu Fengmian recognized him at a glance. Room 10 was filled with a group of desolate ancient sect disciples. Upon hearing Chu Fengmian's bid, the barren ancient sect disciples were enraged. Senior Brother Gu, this person really doesn't know what's good for him. He actually dares to compete with you. Do you want us to investigate who he is? Teach him a lesson. Anyone who dares to go against the desolate ancient sect can only die. A disciple of the desolate ancient sect said viciously. When he spoke, his voice was filled with killing intent. It was as if he was high and mighty and had control over everyone's life and death. In his heart, the lives of ordinary martial artists were not even comparable to ants. They were existences that he could easily crush to death. These disciples of the desolate ancient sect were extremely arrogant. Especially since the desolate ancient sect was one of the 7 great sects and came from the most prosperous central region. In this remote north region, these desolate ancient sect disciples looked down on other north region disciples. Naturally, they did not take them seriously. After all, this is the largest auction in the Void Ocean. The sky-reaching pavilion behind this auction is quite powerful. It's better not to initiate a conflict. Another sect of the desolate ancient sect disciple said slowly. It's just a remote place like the North region. I don't believe that he dares to provoke the desolate ancient sect. Senior Brother Gu, do you want me to teach that brat a lesson? Destroy his cultivation and let others know the consequences of competing with the desolate ancient sect. The desolate ancient sect disciple who had just spoken said disdainfully. Silence. Senior Brother Gu, who was sitting on the throne, said coldly. His words contained an unparalleled majesty, causing the quarreling voices below to instantly disappear. This is the North region. It's better not to provoke trouble. It's just a fight for wealth. I don't believe that a brat from the North region can compete with me. Gu Lin said coldly, 700,000 spiritual stones. 800,000 spiritual stones. The moment Gu Lin opened his mouth, Chu Fengmian's voice rang out without hesitation. It showed that Chu Fengmian was determined to win. Damn it. Hearing this price, Gu Lin's face was filled with anger. Chu Fengmian, who was competing with him, said in a relaxed tone. He did not care about the price at all. Although Gu Lin was quite wealthy, he was still furious that he had to pay such a huge price for a creation tree branch. Senior Brother Gu, although this creation tree branch is precious, it's nothing in the middle region. We can buy it with some means when we return to the middle region. You don't have to compete with the North region aborigines. A desolate ancient sect disciple beside Gu Lin said flatteringly. What do you know? The creation tree branch is nothing, but this creation tree branch is different. Gu Lin said coldly. Among the 6 ancient cave dwellings, the one that we entered was the ancient era expert spiritual wood lord's cave dwelling. The spiritual wood celestial was once born from a branch of the creation tree. The spiritual wood lord's cave dwelling has not been fully opened yet. The greatest treasure within, the inheritance of the spiritual wood lord, has not been obtained yet. There must be something missing. This creation tree branch was found in the spiritual wood lord's cave dwelling. It might be related to the inheritance of the spiritual wood lord. If I can obtain the inheritance of the spiritual wood lord, I will become an invincible figure in the desolate ancient sect. I must get this creation tree branch. 1 million spiritual stones. Gu Lin shouted again, calling out a sky-high price. 1 million spiritual stones. No one would have expected the first treasure of the auction, the creation tree branch, to be sold at such a high price. The inheritance of the spiritual wood lord? I have heard of this spiritual wood lord before. He was an almighty in the ancient era who was born from the creation tree. He was a half-demon, half-immortal. Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised when he heard Gu Lin's words. Among the 6 ancient cave dwellings, there was one that belonged to the spiritual wood lord. Moreover, this creation tree branch was closely related to the inheritance of the spiritual wood lord. Although the spiritual wood lord was not as invincible as the ancient dragon emperor, he was still a powerful figure in the 9 regions. Anyone who could obtain his inheritance would benefit immensely. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. The people of the desolate ancient sect wanted to compete with Chu Fengmian. Now, they would fight to their heart's content, 1,500,000 spiritual stones. Chapter 577. Chu Fengmian's mouth moved as he shouted out another price. This time, he raised the price by 500,000 spiritual stones. Young Master Chu? Elderly was also shocked. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to be so generous. Chu Fengmian was willing to pay such a high price for a builder tree branch. In Elderly's opinion, a builder tree branch was not even worth 100,000 spiritual stones. The current price was simply sky high. This person wants to compete with me. Let's see who has more wealth. Chu Fengmian snorted like a young man in a fit of pique. Young Master Chu is indeed wealthy. Elderly was speechless. He looked at Chu Fengmian as if he was looking at a nouveau riche. His behavior was indeed like an enraged nouveau riche. Bai Xian's eyes flickered. Based on her understanding of Chu Fengmian was definitely not a brainless nouveau riche. On the contrary, Chu Fengmian's wisdom was definitely far beyond that of an ordinary person. He would definitely not pay such a high price for a fit of pique. In the Sky Room 10. Damn it, this person is really going against Senior Brother Gu. A desolate ancient sect disciple stood up and said furiously. Do you want me to go out and kill this person? Sit down. Gu Lin snorted. His tone was filled with anger. I'd like to see how much wealth this reckless guy has. 1,600,000 spiritual stones. 2 million spiritual stones. Chu Fengmian said without hesitation. The builder tree branch was originally very useful to Chu Fengmian. Now that Chu Fengmian knew that the builder tree branch was related to the inheritance of Lord Lingmu, Chu Fengmian could not give it up. Moreover, the people who were competing for it were from the 7 major sections. 2,100,000. Gu Lin once again spoke from booth number 10. His voice was filled with endless fury. When everyone heard that, they understood that the owner of private room number 10 was furious. 2,500,000. Chu Fengmian was not affected by the anger in the voice. He acted as if he did not hear it. 2,600,000. Gu Lin's voice was heard again from room 10. Everyone could tell that every time Gu Lin made a bid, the anger in his voice would become even stronger. He was like a lion that was about to go berserk. The current silence was just the calm before the eruption. 8 million. Chu Fengmian said coldly, not giving Gu Lin any chance. No matter what price Gu Lin offered, Chu Fengmian would always beat him. Interesting. I didn't expect the competition to be so fierce right from the start. This is no longer a competition. They are just throwing a tantrum. This price is enough to surpass the price of the creation tree branch by tens of times. The big shots in the heaven box are really rich. Who cares about them? It's just a bunch of big shots throwing a tantrum. We'll just watch. A series of voices could be heard from below. In room 10. After Chu Fengmian beat down his bids several times in a row, Gu Lin's face was filled with anger. Gu Lin's blood rushed to his head. His face turned red and his hair stood on end. He looked like a mad lion. He was so angry that he wanted to tear Chu Fengmian apart. Damn it. Damn it. This guy is going against me. How dare a native of the North region go against me? Gu Lin roared crazily. 9 million. This bid was close to an angry roar. Everyone could hear the murderous intent in Gu Lin's voice. If this wasn't an auction, Gu Lin would have killed him on the spot. However, no matter how crazily Gu Lin roared, Chu Fengmian's voice was still as calm as before. It was as if the wealth he offered didn't belong to him at all. A few million spiritual stones was just a drop in the ocean for Chu Fengmian. It wasn't even 1/10,000th of the wealth in his blood sea. Of course, he wouldn't care. 3 million. Chu Fengmian casually offered another bid. Room 10 was silent for a while. In the next moment, an extremely cold voice was heard. 2 million. 5 million. Chu Fengmian was still calm and continued to bid, 300. Before Gu Lin could finish his words, Chu Fengmian interrupted him. 4 million, 400, 5 million. Chu Fengmian didn't wait for Gu Lin to finish his bid. Damn it. Damn it. In room 10, Gu Lin was completely enraged. This brat is courting death. Investigate. Let's find out who he is. Kill him. How dare he go against senior brother Gu and the barren ancient sect? Even if he has 10,000 lives, he will die today. The disciples of the barren ancient sect spoke one after another. Let's go. Let's go to the sky-piercing pavilion and pressure them to find out who he is. The disciples of the barren ancient sect were so angry that they wanted to leave the room and pressure the sky-piercing pavilion to find out who Chu Fengmian was. Wait. Gu Lin said coldly. It's only a matter of time before I kill this brat. However, I must get this creation tree branch today. 6 million spiritual stones. Gu Lin said again. His voice was filled with endless killing intent. This creation tree branch is used by the disciples of the barren ancient sect. Please give me some face. The moment those words were spoken, anyone could hear the terrifying killing intent contained within them. It was definitely a threat. When Gu Lin said the words barren ancient sect, the expressions of the experts changed drastically. Even the martial artists of the North region knew about the barren ancient sect. The name of the 7 sects was known throughout the 9 regions. Even the North region was no exception. In the North region, every martial artist knew what the 7 sects represented. They were supreme and invincible existences that dominated the 9 regions. They were the strongest forces in the North region. Even the North Sea College was no match for the 7 sects. They are from the 7 sects. Competing with them will offend the 7 sects. Who dares to compete with them? I think the person in room 11 is going to back down. The name of the barren ancient sect has already been announced. Competing with them will be going against the barren ancient sect. Countless martial artists were in a heated discussion. Chu Fengmian's voice rang out from room 11, 7 million spiritual stones. After shouting out the price, Chu Fengmian's mocking voice rang out from room 11. So what if you are a disciple of the barren ancient sect? In the auction, the highest bidder wins. Paupers should just obediently scram back to the central region. Chapter 578. What? He still dares to bid? Judging from his tone, he doesn't care about the desolate ancient sect at all. Who is he? He must be from the Sky Chamber of Commerce. Since when did such an arrogant person appear in the Sky Chamber of Commerce? Impressive. He dares to compete with the 7 sections. I didn't expect such a person to appear in the North region. Many martial artists' spiritual consciousnesses were discussing among themselves below. Damn it. This brat is going against me. Gu Lin was so angry that he wanted to destroy the heavens and earth. Senior brother Gu, let us attack and kill this person. Kill him on the spot. Anyone who dares to go against the desolate ancient sect will die. Let's kill him now at the auction and let everyone know that the dignity of the 7 sects is not to be challenged. The disciples of the desolate ancient sect spoke with great passion. As disciples of the desolate ancient sect and the 7 sects, they were all proud and arrogant. They were proud of their status as members of the 7 sections. Chu Fengmian's words showed that he didn't care about the 7 sects at all. It was an endless provocation to them. Stop. Now is not the time to kill. Gu Lin's eyes flickered rapidly before he spoke slowly. Our purpose here is the fragment of the extreme path immoral weapon. Even the sect takes this matter seriously. We can't have any conflict with the sky-reaching pavilion now. This brat will die sooner or later. It's fine to let him have the builder tree branch first. When he leaves the sky-reaching pavilion, he'll die. I've already planted a special seal on him. Even if he escapes to the ends of the earth, we'll still be able to hunt him down. Yes. The other sect of the desolate ancient sect disciples hurriedly voiced their agreement. Room 10 gradually quieted down. After a long while, Gu Lin's hearty laughter rang out. I admire your wealth and won't compete with you. However, please remember that you shouldn't show off your wealth. If you do, you'll be in trouble. Please be careful. Gu Lin's words were full of killing intent. Although it was a reminder, it was actually a threat. Everyone could hear the threat in Gu Lin's words. Chu Fengmian, this person should already bear a grudge against you. Right now, they don't dare to act impudently in the auction house. However, once they leave the auction house, I'm afraid that these people will not leave the matter at that. Bai Xian felt a lingering fear when she heard Gu Lin's killing intent. Gu Lin's strength was even greater than Flood Yu's. Coupled with his identity as a disciple of the desolate ancient sect, he was definitely a terrifying figure. It was not a good thing to provoke them. It doesn't matter. I've already killed more than one disciple of the desolate ancient sect. It doesn't matter if I offend a few more. Chu Fengmian said calmly. As long as I'm strong enough, the people from the 7 major sects are nothing. I can even destroy the 7 major sections. Destroying the 7 great sects. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Bai Xian was extremely shocked. In Bai Xian's heart, the 7 great sects had always been in existence that she did not dare to provoke. Not to mention destroying the 7 great sects, Bai Xian didn't even dare to think about provoking the 7 great sects and fighting against them. This person's wisdom is terrifying to the extreme. No matter how strong the enemy is, he is not afraid. However, this is indeed the most important aspect of becoming an expert. I don't need to fear anything. Only by not fearing anything can I become a true expert. Bai Xian thought to herself. Thinking of this, Bai Xian's aura began to rise. Unexpectedly, she had reached the limit of the divine power realm. After getting rid of the knot in her heart, her state had reached perfection. As long as she could find an opportunity, she would be able to pass the life and death tribulation and become a life and death expert. Oh? Chu Fengmian did not expect that his words would be enough to enlighten Bai Xian. However, Bai Xian's aptitude was already extremely high. Now that she had obtained many fortuitous encounters in Dragon Emperor Yan's cave, it was normal for her to have a breakthrough. Someone is here. Young Master Chu, please prepare the spiritual stones. Elderly, who was at the side, suddenly reminded. The door of booth number 11 suddenly opened, and a young woman walked in with a jade box in her hand. Elderly? I didn't expect you to be the one who won the bid for this creation tree branch. When the young woman pushed open the door and saw Elderly, her face revealed a surprised expression. Young Lady Luoshi, this creation tree branch was not bought by this old man. This old man is not that generous. Elderly smiled and said while pointing at Chu Fengmian. This old man is accompanying someone to this auction. Oh? Luoshi followed Elderly's gaze and looked at Chu Fengmian. Seeing such an unfamiliar face, she sized him up and suddenly spoke. You are young Master Chu? The one who defeated the flood prison? Sky-reaching pavilion is indeed heaven-defying. I didn't expect you to know me so quickly. Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised in his heart, but he soon smiled and said. Yes, it's me. Young Master Chu is now the most influential person in the Void Ocean. How could this little girl not know you? Luoshi chuckled. Her smile was so charming that it could mesmerize anyone who saw it. Martial artists with weak willpower would have lost themselves in it. However, Chu Fengmian's willpower was firm and he did not care at all. Luoshi was indeed an extremely beautiful lady. Her appearance was probably not inferior to Hanyu Li. However, unlike Hanyu Li's coldness, Luo Shi's every move seemed to be very intimate, making it easier for people to get lost in it. "Young lady Luo Shi, please excuse me. Here are 7 million spiritual stones." "Young lady Luo Shi, please count them." Chu Fengmian did not continue Luo Shi's words. He waved his hand and a ball of king-grade spiritual stones appeared in his hand. It was worth exactly 7 million spiritual stones. King-grade spiritual stones. Luo Shi was stunned when she saw all the king-grade spiritual stones that Chu Fengmian took out. This was a huge sum of money. Generally, even the wealthiest people in the Void Ocean would rarely take out royal-grade spiritual stones to trade. What surprised Luo Shi even more was that Chu Fengmian was not affected by her at all. Seeing that Chu Fengmian woke up so quickly, Luo Shi's eyes revealed a bit of strangeness. She quickly reacted and said, "Young Master Chu is really rich. The creation tree branch is in this jade box." Luo Shi presented the jade box with the creation tree branch inside. "That's right." Chu Fengmian nodded. Only the creation tree branch had such rich vitality. "Well, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave," Luo Shi said as her figure flashed and disappeared from the room. The charming technique of the charming demon sect of the Six Paths Demon Sect. Interesting. There are still people from the Six Paths Demon Sect. Chu Fengmian looked at Luo Shi's back and thought. There's only 3 chapters left. After moving for a day, I'm too tired to continue writing. I've been sleeping at 2 or 3 in the morning for the past few days. I can't take it anymore. I'll make it up after moving. Chapter 579. The Six Paths Demon Gate was an ancient sect. It was even more ancient than the 9 Demons City. However, according to the records, the Six Paths Demon Gate had long been destroyed. He did not expect to meet someone from the Six Paths Demon Gate today. "Why, young Master Chu, are you interested in Miss Luo Shi?" Elderly asked seriously. Seeing Chu Fengmian's expression, Elderly's face turned serious. "Miss Luo Shi is not an ordinary person. Young Master Chu, if you have any ideas about her, you should give up." Chu Fengmian looked at Elderly and said with a smile. "Why? Miss Luo Shi doesn't seem to be an ordinary person. Miss Luo Shi's status in the Sky-Reaching Pavilion is extremely high. Young Master Chu, please don't have any ideas about her," Elderly reminded. "Otherwise, you'll only attract disaster." "Disaster? I've never been afraid of any disaster in my life." Chu Fengmian laughed and said. "Elderly, don't worry. I'm just curious about Miss Luo Shi. Nothing else." "I hope so." Elderly smiled bitterly. These young people, especially those who had some strength, could not remain indifferent after seeing Luo Shi. If Elderly was not so old, he would have been mesmerized by Luo Shi. While they were talking, the second treasure was being auctioned on the spectator stand. The second treasure was a giant axe spiritual weapon. It was a mid-grade Earth-class spiritual weapon. Although its grade was not high, it was ancient and had countless runes carved on it that surpassed the current era. Its power was much stronger than the current high-grade Earth-class spiritual weapons. It was a rare treasure. However, this kind of thing was meaningless to Chu Fengmian. He had the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword, abundant lush steel, and the Emperor's Jar. He might not even be interested in an ordinary Heaven-class spiritual weapon, let alone an Earth-class spiritual weapon. It was the same for Bai Xian. Bai Xian had obtained a top-grade Earth-class spiritual sword in the ancient Yen Dragon Emperor cave abode by chance. She was already a sword cultivator. Bai Xian's current strength was much stronger than before she came to the Void Ocean. It was almost certain that she would return to the North Sea Academy and be promoted to a core disciple. The third item, the fourth item, the fifth item, one by one, the treasures were put up for auction. Apart from spiritual weapons, there were also many rare items, some unique materials, and even ancient martial arts. These things were of little use to Chu Fengmian, so he had never bought them. Chu Fengmian knew very well that the items being auctioned now were all ordinary items. The truly valuable treasures would only be auctioned at the end. However, even some ordinary items were priceless treasures in the outside world. They were things that could not be bought at all. The 12th treasure, Sword Chi of the Heavens. Reverend Spiritual Venerable said. Then, a maid walked out with a transparent crystal in her hand. Within the transparent crystal, one could vaguely see 3 streaks of sword chi. These 3 streaks of sword chi were extremely sharp. Through the crystal, Chu Fengmian could sense how powerful the sword aura was. This is at least the sword chi left behind by a life and death realm expert. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself when he saw the sword chi. Heavenly sword chi? To think that the sky-reaching pavilion would even take out something like this in the auction. Elderly, who was sitting in a group, seemed to be shocked as he cried out involuntarily. This is the sword chi left behind by the previous strongest expert of the sky-reaching pavilion, the Heavenly Sword Master. It's said that it contains the sword Tao of the Heavenly Sword Master. Anyone who can obtain it can comprehend the sword Tao of the Heavenly Sword Master. Chu Fengmian thought inwardly. Comprehend the sword Tao of the Heavenly Sword Master? That's far from easy. Only an expert at the pinnacle of the sword Tao can comprehend the sword Tao of the Heavenly Sword Master with just this sword chi. Such an expert's strength would not be below the Heavenly Sword Master's. He would not waste such a great price to comprehend the sword Tao of others. However, although it was impossible to comprehend the sword Tao of the Heavenly Sword Master, if a sword cultivator obtained it and integrated it into his own sword Tao, it would be equivalent to receiving guidance from a senior. It would be extremely useful. This sword chi was useless to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's sword Tao surpassed the Heavenly Sword Master's. This sword chi had no effect on him. However, to Divine Force realm or even Life and Death realm sword cultivators, this sword chi was an extremely great treasure. Sword chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi. Bai Xian, who was sitting beside Chu Fengmian, opened her eyes wide the moment she saw the sword chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi. Her eyes were filled with envy and desire. Bai Xian's sword Tao was different from Chu Fengmian's. It was a kind of myriad sword technique. It gathered all the swords in the world and reached greater mastery. The sword chi of a supreme expert like the sword chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi was the best supplement for her. Senior Sister Bai Xian, do you want the sword chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi? Chu Fengmian looked at Bai Xian's eyes and smiled. If Senior Sister Bai Xian wants it, how about I bid for it for you? This. You've already spent so much wealth to buy the Builder Tree branch. If you bid for this sword chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi, you'll lose too much. When Bai Xian heard Chu Fengmian's words, she was delighted at first, but soon after, her eyes dimmed. This sword chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi wasn't something cheap. It was enough to make countless sword cultivators fight over it. Its value was extremely high. Although Bai Xian wanted to buy this sword chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi, she was far from being able to do so with her wealth. It's fine. The Builder Tree branch's wealth is just a drop in the ocean. If Senior Sister Bai Xian wants it, I'll bid for it. It can also be considered as repaying Senior Sister Bai Xian's 10,000 contribution points. Chu Fengmian looked at Bai Xian and smiled. The wealth needed to buy this sword chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi was nothing to Chu Fengmian. The 12th item, Sword Chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi. The starting price is 10,000 spiritual stones. Taoist spiritual sage shouted from the spectator stand. 20,000 spiritual stones. 30,000 spiritual stones. 50,000 spiritual stones. 100,000 spiritual stones. Countless sword cultivators below bid one after another, and the price soared. The sword chi of the Heavenly Sword Chi was much more useful to sword cultivators than countless wondrous items of the heavens. 200,000 spiritual stones. Just as the bids were being raised countless times, a figure suddenly appeared, causing the entire place to turn silent. This voice came from Box 10. It was the voice of Gu Lin, a disciple of the Desolate Ancient Sect. Damn it, it's the Desolate Ancient Sect again. This person has competed for countless treasures. I can't believe he's also competing for this sword chi of the heavenly sword chi. It's a pity that we can't go against him. The desolate ancient sect is a colossus, one of the 7 major sections. Going against them is simply courting death. Countless sword cultivators below were indignant, but no one dared to bid again. Chapter 580. At this moment, anyone who placed a bid would offend the desolate ancient sect. Is there no one else who wants to bid higher? Spiritual sage glanced at the crowd and asked slowly. The scene was dead silent. No one dared to answer. Spiritual sage, the sword chi belongs to us now. Hand it over. Gu Lin laughed heartily as he looked at the silent crowd. In his opinion, this sword chi was already in his bag. However, just as he finished speaking, a voice resounded in the next moment. Others may be afraid of the desolate ancient sect, but I'm not. 300,000 spiritual stones. Chu Fengmian, who was in box 11, said casually. The person in box 11 is bidding again. Interesting. Last time, this person snatched the creation tree branch from the desolate ancient sect. I thought he had used up all his wealth when he didn't say anything. I didn't expect him to come and disturb us again. The crowd below all had the mentality of watching a good show as they watched the dispute. They didn't dare to offend the desolate ancient sect, but someone else did. They only needed to watch the show quietly. Damn it. This person is here to cause trouble again. Does he have a grudge against the desolate ancient sect? Inside the skybox number 10, Gu Lin's face was initially filled with joy and pride. Since he announced his identity as the desolate ancient sect, no one in the auction dared to compete with him. Just as Gu Lin was feeling complacent, Chu Fengmian's words made his face turn ugly as if he had just eaten shit. Damn it. My sword principle is about to be upgraded. As long as I get the sword chi of the sword chi, my sword principle will be improved. How dare this brat come and disturb us? Gu Lin scolded crazily. If it weren't for his fear of the sky-reaching pavilion and his need to continue participating in the auction, he would have already killed Chu Fengmian. Gu Lin couldn't wait to grab Chu Fengmian and cut him into pieces. Only by extracting his soul and refining his soul could he quell the anger in his heart. 500,000. Gu Lin bid again. 600,000. Chu Fengmian's emotionless voice rang out again. Every time Gu Lin bid, Chu Fengmian would chase after him. In a short period of time, the sword aura had increased to 3 million spiritual stones. 3,500,000. The anger in Gu Lin's heart had already reached its limit and was on the verge of exploding. Every time he opened his mouth, it was filled with a terrifying killing intent. Anyone who heard it would be able to sense Gu Lin's rage. Don't you think that you're going too far? Do you really think that our desolate ancient sect has no one capable of standing up against you? Gu Lin said coldly. I'll give you a chance. If you back out now, I'll give you a chance to live. If you keep fighting, you'll die. Gu Lin's words were a clear threat. He was arrogant and domineering, wanting to decide someone's life and death with a single word. Really? Do the people of the ancient Baron's sect only know how to use their sect as a shield? The auction has its rules. The highest bidder wins. I've said it before. If you don't have money, scram back to the central region. Chu Fengmian said coldly without any trace of politeness. 4 million spirit stones. Chu Fengmian called out an even higher price, pushing Gu Lin's bid down once again. Damn it. I'm going to kill him. Gu Lin had never encountered such a situation where he was continuously ridiculed by others. His anger was so strong that he wanted to destroy everything in the world. Even though there was a restrictive aura in the private room, Gu Lin's anger still spread out. Gu Lin slammed his hand on the throne, turning it into dust. He was about to leave the private room to find Chu Fengmian and kill him. Senior brother Gu, we're here for the fragment of the extreme path immoral weapon. We can't fall out with the sky-reaching pavilion now. A desolate ancient sect disciple beside Gu Lin quickly came forward to persuade him. Humph. The moment the words extreme path immoral weapon were mentioned, the anger on Gu Lin's face dissipated and he became more clear-headed. That's right. The sex matters are the most important. This kid is a dead man anyway. No matter how much wealth he obtains, it will belong to me in the end. Gu Lin said angrily, but he managed to suppress his anger in the end. With a wave of his hand, the throne that he had smashed into pieces reappeared, and he sat down once again. 4,000,000 spirit stones was already a sky-high price. The sword chi disappeared from the spectator stand. Soon, Luo Shi brought the sword chi to private room number 10 and let it in. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and countless king-grade spiritual stones appeared. They turned into a ball and flew towards Luo Shi. Luo Shi took it and left. This sword chi is indeed of a good grade. It must have been left to the sky-reaching pavilion by the heavenly sword sovereign. Chu Fengmian sized up the sword chi. He could tell that the sword chi was of a very high grade. It wasn't the kind of sword chi that could be bought casually. Although 4,000,000 spirit stones was a high price, it was still worth it. Senior sister Bai Xian, you should refine the sword chi right now. I'll help you advance your sword Dao. Chu Fengmian handed the sword chi to Bai Xian. Bai Xian took it and nodded her head. She opened the seal of the sword aura, and 3 of the sword auras merged into Bai Xian's body. As soon as the sword chi entered Bai Xian's body, it fused with her body. It merged with Bai Xian's sword Dao, causing Bai Xian's sword Dao to undergo changes. However, the sword chi was an external object after all. Only 30% of it merged into Bai Xian's sword Dao. The rest would go to waste. If you refine all of this sword chi, you might be able to comprehend the sword Dao of the heavenly sword sovereign. Let me help you then. Chu Fengmian looked at Bai Xian and made his move. His sword chi merged into Bai Xian's body and turned into a godly devouring python that traveled through her body. The heaven-devouring godly python devoured and refined the sword chi to help Bai Xian refine her sword Dao. Boom! In an instant, the 3 sword chi were devoured by Bai Xian. A sharp sword intent suddenly condensed on Bai Xian's body. Behind Bai Xian, there were a total of 99 different sword chis, which formed into a formation. Her sword principle was only 1 sword chi away from reaching the initial level. You're missing 1 out of 100. I'll help you to complete your sword Dao now. Seeing this scene, Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and the heaven-devouring divine python fused into Bai Xian's body. The 100 sword chi in the formation behind Bai Xian was completed. Her sword Dao was finally complete. Chapter 581. Bai Xian stood up abruptly. An extremely mysterious sword intent gushed out from her body. This sword intent was the fusion of 100 strands of sword chi, and the most prominent one was the power of the heavenly sword chi. The power of the heavenly sword chi has been completely devoured. 99% of its power has been devoured. Elderly was extremely surprised to see the changes in Bai Xian. It was not easy to devour even 30% of the external sword chi. Only a rare sword genius could devour 40 or 50% of it. As for the fact that Bai Xian had devoured 99% of the sword chi's power, it was simply inconceivable. Congratulations, senior sister. You've achieved a small success in sword principle. Chu Fengmian looked at Bai Xian and said with a smile. Chu Fengmian had never been stingy with his friends. Bai Xian had helped him a lot, so he didn't think it was a big deal to give the heavenly sword chi to her. My sword principle has finally been condensed. Bai Xian stood up and felt the sword intent in her body. She was overjoyed. The end of her sword principle was the fusion of 10,000 strands of sword chi. Bai Xian had only fused 100 strands of sword chi, which could only be considered a small success. But even so, she had finally condensed it. Although there was a small difference between 98 strands of sword chi and 100 strands of sword chi, they were 2 completely different realms. In terms of strength, Bai Xian was now countless times more powerful than before. Her strength might even surpass Floodyu, Luo Zhanhan, and the others. When she returned to the Beimang Academy, she would be the real #1 person in the inner sect. I have to thank you for your help. Bai Xian looked at Chu Fengmian with a thoughtful look in her eyes. Although elderly didn't treat her to a meal, Bai Xian knew that her strength had improved so much. She had devoured 90% of the heavenly sword Qi's spiritual power not because of herself. It was because of Chu Fengmian. The last strand of sword Qi she lacked was also completed by Chu Fengmian. Although Chu Fengmian's last sword Qi didn't contain much overbearing power, it had a power that could fuse everything. It had perfectly fused the other 99 strands of sword Qi in her body together, which allowed her to achieve a small success in sword principle. It could be said that all of this was thanks to Chu Fengmian. However, Bai Xian didn't point this out. Chu Fengmian indeed had many secrets. If they were exposed, it would be extremely troublesome. If Chu Fengmian didn't want to talk about it, Bai Xian wouldn't take the initiative to ask. Due to Bai Xian's breakthrough, her sword intent began to seep out of the box. Someone has made a breakthrough in Skyroom 10. What a sharp sword intent. Is this the power of the heavenly sword Qi? The sword Qi of the sky-piercing sword has been condensed by someone just like that. I'm afraid that any peak saint who managed to condense the sword Qi of the sky-piercing sword would become an unrivaled character in the divine force realm. Voices rang out one after another. Some were jealous, but most of them were envious. Indeed, no matter who obtained the heavenly sword Qi, it was not something that they would have the chance to touch. Damn it! The natives of the northern region have actually refined the sword Qi of the heaven-span sword. Gu Lin could sense the sword intent within. Naturally, he knew that the sword Qi of heaven had been refined by someone. The heavenly sword master is a powerhouse who has surpassed the life and death realm. The sword Qi that he left behind has actually been refined by the natives of the northern region. What a waste! The heavenly sword Qi originally belonged to Gu Lin. However, Chu Fengmian had forcefully snatched it away from Gu Lin's hands. Senior brother Gu, don't worry. The heavenly sword Qi has been refined. Once we kill this person, we can also obtain the heavenly sword Qi. A desolate ancient sect disciple consoled. Gu Lin sat on the throne in a huff. His eyes were filled with rage. In his mind, he had already plotted countless times on how to kill Chu Fengmian. The heavenly sword Qi could be considered an interlude. Among the countless treasures that were auctioned off, none of them caught Chu Fengmian's eye. Many of these treasures came from the ancient era. They came from the ancient cave dwelling and were extremely valuable. However, if they were useless to Chu Fengmian, he wouldn't waste his wealth on them. Although Chu Fengmian had a lot of wealth, he wouldn't squander it recklessly. Soon, the auction house was nearing its end. There were only 3 treasures left. The crowd's interest wasn't extinguished by the long time. Instead, as the auction neared its end, everyone became extremely excited. This was because everyone knew that the last 3 treasures were the highlight of the auction. The 37th treasure. Venerable Spirit Sage was on the spectator stand. Several venerables joined hands to carry an incomparably huge object and placed it on the stage. This thing was dozens of meters long and wide. At a glance, it had a strange shape. It seemed to vaguely resemble the palm of a creature. This is a dragon claw? Dragon Emperor's dragon claw? The moment Chu Fengmian saw this object, his expression changed. The faint dragon aura emitted from this object couldn't escape Chu Fengmian's eyes. This object was actually a dragon claw whose strength had reached the level of a dragon emperor. This object is Dragon Emperor Ao Heng's dragon claw. Venerable Spirit Sage slowly opened his mouth on the spectator stand. This item came from the ancient cave mansion. Ao Heng Dragon Emperor was one of the best in the ancient dragon clan. He was strong enough to become the Dragon Emperor. Although he had been dead for tens of thousands of years, his dragon claw still contains a terrifying power. It even contains the Dragon Emperor's bloodline. Anyone who can obtain it will obtain the Dragon Emperor's bloodline. Venerable Spirit Sage's words immediately set off an uproar in the auction house. Dragon Emperor's dragon claw. Dragon Emperor Ao Heng was a famous figure 10,000 years ago. He was the leader of the Dragon Emperors and was close to becoming the Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Clan's bloodline, especially the Dragon Emperor's bloodline. Whoever can obtain it will obtain endless benefits. Today, even if I have to stake all my wealth, I will obtain this dragon claw. Streams of spiritual consciousness were chatting with each other. Chu Fengmian felt that the people in the heaven box beside him were discussing animatedly. Dragon Emperor's Dragon Claw. The heaven-reaching auction was indeed the largest auction in the Void Ocean. The first of the last 3 items was actually this kind of object. Good stuff. Dragon Emperor Ao Hung was close to becoming the Dragon Emperor. Although he couldn't compete with Dragon Emperor Yan Gu, he was still a peerless overlord in the Dragon Clan. Chu Fengmian looked at the Dragon Emperor's Dragon Claw with some excitement in his eyes. This Dragon Claw contains a lot of power. I happen to have the Nirvana Dragon Egg. I can use the Dragon Emperor's Dragon Claw and the Nirvana Dragon Egg at the same time to double the effect with half the effort. Chapter 582. Chu Fengmian cultivated the Battle Dragon art. Now, the Dragon Claw of Ao Hung Dragon Emperor would be of great use in Chu Fengmian's hands. I must get this Dragon Claw. Chu Fengmian was determined to get the Dragon Claw. He was so rich that no matter who came to compete for it, Chu Fengmian would fight for it. As the sounds of discussion gradually dissipated, the spiritual venerable spirit sage on the spectator's stand slowly opened his mouth and said, "Don't worry. The starting price for the Dragon Claw of Ao Hung Dragon Emperor is 1 million spiritual stones." Although Reverend Spiritual Sage's tone was calm, every word he said resonated in everyone's hearts. The starting price of 1 million was a number that many peak saints couldn't get even if they sold their entire fortune. The venue fell into silence for a moment. But in the next moment, countless voices sounded at the same time. 2 million. 3 million. 5 million. 10 million. Countless voices abruptly rang out from the earth box. The value of the Dragon Claw wasn't something a mere 1 million spiritual stones could compare with. The price instantly broke through 10 million spiritual stones. And it was still climbing. 20 million. A voice suddenly sounded in the heaven box. This voice was incomparably deep, and it belonged to a true expert. Heaven Box 7. Chu Fengmian instantly sensed that the voice had resounded from the 7th Sky VIP box. Apart from Chu Fengmian's Box 11 and Gu Lin's Box 10, this was the first time someone from the Heaven Box had bid. A true big shot has finally made his move. The Dragon Claw of Ao Hung Dragon Emperor is extremely valuable to high-level life and death experts. I'm afraid this Dragon Claw will be auctioned for a sky-high price. The venerables below were discussing spiritedly. They were all here to watch the show. This Dragon Claw was naturally not something they could compete for. This Dragon Claw is worth 20 million spiritual stones. If no one wants it, it will be mine. A voice sounded from the Heaven Box 7. These words contained a hint of threat. Whoever dared to bid for the Dragon Emperor's Dragon Claw would be his enemy. The people in the heavenly VIP room were all big shots. This was especially the case for the person who had spoken. The strength that was faintly discernible from his voice had already reached the high level of the life and death stage. No one wanted to offend such a big shot. Oh? Who is this person? How dare he be so arrogant? When Chu Fengmian heard this voice, he could also hear the domineering majesty and threat in it. The guest elder of the Beyond the Heavens sect, Jianwang, should be in the 7th private room. It is said that this person had a fortuitous encounter with the Dragon Clan, so it is not strange that he wanted to obtain the Dragon Emperor's Dragon Claw. Elderly explained from the side. Jade-faced Dragon's strength is among the top life and death realm experts. Young Master Chu shouldn't compete with him. Elderly could already see that Chu Fengmian was a lawless character. Chu Fengmian didn't even care about the desolate ancient sect of the 7 major sections. Elderly didn't want Chu Fengmian to offend the Jade-faced Dragon and cause the Sky Trade Association to lose such a big customer. Oh? Hearing Elderly's words, Chu Fengmian quietly activated his spiritual sense and looked at the 7th private room. Through the various restrictions, Chu Fengmian saw a middle-aged man sitting in room number 7 with a single glance. This middle-aged man's body contained a faint dragon aura, and there were even a few dragon scales on his neck. It looked extremely strange. This jade-faced dragon's strength was probably not far from the undying demon venerables. There are quite a lot of experts in the Void Ocean. Chu Fengmian nodded. Chu Fengmian originally thought that the experts in the North region should be in the North Sea Academy in the Earth Demon sect, but now it seemed that there were some experts among the forces in the Void Ocean. Just as Chu Fengmian was pondering, a voice resounded outside. "Brother Yumen, 20 million spirit stones for the Dragon Emperor's Dragon Claw is a little too cheap, isn't it?" Beside him, another voice sounded from room number 6. "I'll pay 30 million. This voice was also incomparably domineering, and the aura contained in it was not any weaker than jade-faced dragons. This was another high-level life and death realm expert. High-level life and death realm experts were extremely rare in the Void Ocean, but now, they were revealed one after another in the auction. 40 million. Another voice came from the third room. It was a woman's voice. Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw a woman sitting in the third private room. 2 middle-aged men stood behind her, guarding her at all times. This woman's strength was similar to Luo Zhanhan and the others, but the 2 middle-aged men behind her were high-level life and death realm experts. To be able to have high-level life and death realm experts guarding her, one could imagine the power behind this woman. 50 million. In the 7th private room, Jade-faced Dragon spoke again. 60 million. The woman in the 3rd private room also spoke again. The price continued to rise. However, at this moment, only the 3 clans were still fighting over it. It's about time. The price had already risen to 80 million, Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. This price should be reaching its limit soon. 100 million. Chu Fengmian suddenly spoke. These 3 short words were like a clap of thunder, resounding in the hearts of countless people. 100 million spirit stones, what kind of concept was that? It was an astronomical number that many people had never thought of. The 11th private room again. Is this person's wealth really unlimited? He actually raised the price by 20 million? In the 11th private room, when Elderly heard Chu Fengmian's bid, he almost broke out in a cold sweat. Such a sky-high price was no longer a matter of offending people. He was afraid that Chu Fengmian wouldn't be able to take it out. 100 million spirit stones was not a small number in the Sky Chamber of Commerce. Even if Chu Fengmian had some fortuitous encounters and obtained wealth, it would not be easy for him to take out 100 million spirit stones. Young Master Chu, are you really going to spend 100 million spirit stones to buy the Dragon Emperor Claw? Elderly was stuttering as he spoke. 100 million spirit stones was a number that even he had never thought of. Of course, I am determined to get the Dragon Emperor Claw. Chu Fengmian said calmly. The venue was silent. The 3rd private room, the 6th private room, and the 7th private room were all silent, as if they were stunned by this number. Well, then the Dragon Emperor Claw belongs to the 11th private room. Spiritual Venerable waved his hand, and the huge Dragon Emperor Claw flew directly toward the 11th private room. Today's 4th update. I haven't finished the moving yet, so I can only update at 4th. When I'm done, I'll have more. Thank you for your reward, thank you for supporting this book. Chapter 583. Countless pairs of eyes were looking in their direction. They wanted to see if Chu Fengmian could afford the sky-high price of 100 million spiritual stones. Sir, please take out 100 million spiritual stones. Spiritual Venerable said slowly. Take out 100 million spiritual stones and the Dragon Emperor Claw will belong to you. It's just 100 million spiritual stones. You don't have to make such a big fuss. Do you think I owe the sky-piercing pavilion anything? Chu Fengmian's laughter rang out. A long river of spiritual stones flew out from room number 11. Every spiritual stone in the river contained extremely pure spiritual energy. They were all royal-grade spiritual stones. They are all royal-grade spiritual stones. What? Where did he come from? Using royal-grade spiritual stones to trade? He's really extravagant. All the honorable martial artists were dumbfounded when they saw the river of spiritual stones. They could not help but want to snatch the spiritual stones for themselves. If any of them could get their hands on this river of spirit stones, they would instantly become rich. However, such thoughts only existed in their imaginations. A person who could take out so much wealth in one go was definitely not an ordinary person. In the Heavenspan Pavilion, trying to snatch something was truly courting death. Spiritual Sage took the spiritual stones and checked the numbers in one glance. There was no problem, so he said. 100 million spiritual stones. Not bad. Well, the Dragon Emperor Claw will belong to me. Chu Fengmian shouted. An arm of spiritual energy suddenly appeared and grabbed the Dragon Emperor Claw. In the blink of an eye, the Dragon Emperor's dragon claw rapidly shrank. In the next moment, it disappeared from the square. No one present could see through the mystery behind it. This person's means are extremely mysterious. I can't even see how he did it. A disciple of the desolate ancient sect murmured to himself in Heaven Room 10. This person is not easy to deal with. It's fine. His methods are just a little more bizarre. I can sense that this person is still at the Divine Force realm. A cultivator at the Divine Force realm actually dares to fight against me? He is simply courting death. Gulin sneered. It's good to let him get more treasures. The more treasures he gets, the more I can get them all when I kill him in the future. Investigate. Investigate this person's background and find out where he came from to have such a huge amount of wealth. All of you, go and investigate this person's background. I want to see who dares to compete with us. Voices rang out from the other heaven boxes. They were all trying to figure out Chu Fengmian's identity. Chu Fengmian, you're in the limelight now. A tree that stands out in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. You'll definitely attract the attention of these people. Be careful. Beside him, Bai Xian watched Chu Fengmian's methods with trepidation. The current Chu Fengmian could be said to not put anyone in his eyes. In this way, he would most likely offend countless experts. It doesn't matter. I'd like to see who dares to come. Whoever dares to provoke me will die. Chu Fengmian said calmly. Although his tone was calm, it was enough to hear Chu Fengmian's confidence. Everything was under Chu Fengmian's control. I've bid for countless treasures now. Once I refine them all, anyone who dares to cause trouble for me will die. Chu Fengmian said. I'll have to observe the mystery of this Dragon Emperor's dragon claw first. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. With a thought, the Dragon Emperor's dragon claw appeared in front of him. The Dragon Emperor's dragon claw, which was dozens of meters long, shrunk to the size of an ordinary person's palm. The spiritual energy in it was forcibly condensed by Chu Fengmian. Although it was shrunk, the power in it was more mysterious. Aohung Dragon Emperor is known as the leader of the ancient dragon clan. Now it seems that the rumor is true. Chu Fengmian looked at the Dragon Emperor's dragon claw and thought to himself. Tens of thousands of years was enough to make countless strange things lose their spiritual energy. However, the Dragon Emperor's dragon claw still contained an extremely terrifying power. The spiritual energy contained in it was no less than some heaven elixirs. It was definitely a rare treasure. Blood essence, come out. Chu Fengmian glanced at it. With a move of his palm, a stream of blood essence was drawn out from the Dragon Emperor's dragon claw. There were roughly 3,000 drops of blood essence. Every single drop was golden in color and contained a terrifying amount of spiritual energy within each drop. If these 3,000 drops of dragon blood were swallowed by an ordinary martial artist, it would be enough to let that martial artist possess the Dragon Clan's bloodline, the Dragon Emperor's bloodline. However, for Chu Fengmian, the power of his bloodline, the ancient battle dragon bloodline, was above the Dragon Emperor bloodline. The ancient battle dragon was an existence that was on par with the Dragon Emperor. However, these 3,000 drops of dragon blood were definitely a great supplement for Chu Fengmian. It was enough to be integrated into his battle dragon phantom. Merge! Chu Fengmian roared. Suddenly, the 3,000 drops of dragon blood drilled into Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian's current strength had reached its limit and could not go any further. The 3,000 drops of dragon blood were hidden in the deepest part of Chu Fengmian's body. However, it did not mean that these 3,000 drops of dragon blood were useless. On the contrary, these 3,000 drops of dragon blood were a trump card in Chu Fengmian's body. Whether Chu Fengmian was in danger or going through a life-and-death crisis, he could use these 3,000 drops of dragon blood as his greatest trump card. Of course, the most precious part of the Dragon Emperor's dragon claw was the claw itself. Chu Fengmian kept the Dragon Emperor's dragon claw in the empty ring. He would wait for the perfect moment to start the sacred sacrifice. He would sacrifice the Nirvana Dragon Egg in the Dragon Emperor's dragon claw at the same time to help Chu Fengmian condense his body. The 38th auction item. In the venue, spiritual sage Lingzun spoke again on the stand. A total of 9 spiritual weapons were neatly placed on the stage. Are these the former Heavenly Demon 9 treasures? These 9 spiritual weapons were all top-grade Earth-level spiritual weapons. However, the moment they were brought up, the entire stand was suddenly filled with countless demonic intent. This demonic intent seemed to have filled the entire venue. Some of the weaker warriors could only use their strength to resist the demonic will within. The patterns on it are ancient. It should be the real Heavenly Demon 9 treasures of the Heavenly Demon sect from tens of thousands of years ago. Good stuff. Although this set of Heavenly Demon 9 treasures is only top-grade Earth-level spiritual weapons, it is even more powerful than many heavenly spiritual weapons when combined. Chapter 584. Great, the Heavenly Demons sect used to be the leader of the Demon Tao. If I can get the Heavenly Demon 9 treasures, my strength will be great. In the second skybox, an old man suddenly stood up with a face full of excitement. There was a huge centipede mark on the old man's chest, which looked extremely ferocious. His strong demonic aura was enough to prove his identity. He was definitely a big shot in the Earth Demon sect. Who in the Earth Demon sect has a centipede mark on their chest? Chu Fengmian stood aside. He said quietly. Young Master Chu, are you talking about the 100 Centipede Demon Venerable? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Elderly thought for a moment and said. The 100 Centipede Demon Venerable is one of the big shots in the Earth Demon sect. Apart from those old antiques, how did you provoke him? That's not it. It's just that the 100 Centipede Demon Exalted is also in the auction. He's in the second private room. Chu Fengmian nodded. The 100 Centipede Demon Venerable, a big shot in the Earth Demon sect, followed the old man in the second box. He should be a good person. The 100 Centipede Demon Venerable's strength was even vaguely above that of the Immortal Demon Venerable. His status in the Earth Demon sect was definitely not low. He might even be a real big shot in the Earth Demon sect. Sects like the Earth Demon sect and the Beimang Academy had experts who had transcended life and death, but these people were old antiques who had lived for thousands of years and were usually in seclusion. People like the 100 Centipede Demon Venerable were the real backbone and controlled the overall situation. What, young Master Chu, you can see through the restriction of this box? Elderly's face was full of surprise. The restriction in the Heaven box was countless times more powerful than the one in the Heaven Chamber of Commerce. Even Elderly could not see through it, but Chu Fengmian could. It's just some special means. Chu Fengmian smiled casually and did not explain. This made Elderly feel that Chu Fengmian was somewhat unfathomable. The starting price of the Heavenly Demon 9 treasures is 1 million spirit stones. Spiritual Venerable said directly. 2 million. In the 7th box, Jade-Faced Dragon was the first to speak. 3 million. The voices in the 6th box were also constantly sounded. 4 million. 5 million. 10 million. The price rose steadily and finally reached the level of 70 million. It was bought by the 100 Centipede Demon Sovereign in the second private room. Although the 9 heavenly devil treasures were powerful, they weren't suitable for Chu Fengmian. He already had the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword, the richly lush steel, and the Mortal Emperor Jar, so he didn't need any other spirit treasures. This was especially true for the Celestial Demon 9 treasures, which were weapons of the demonic path. They clashed with Chu Fengmian's techniques. Even if Chu Fengmian obtained them, it would be meaningless. This is the last auction item. Since everyone is here for it, this old man will not keep everyone in suspense. Please take a look. Venerable Spirit Sage let out a long cry as a fragment of a tile floated in the air in his palm. There were countless restrictions around the broken tiles. It was obvious that they had been specially set up as a precaution. The final auction item is an extreme immortal armament fragment. Everyone should be able to sense that the power contained in this extreme immortal armament fragment is completely different from that of a heaven-grade spirit artifact. Spiritual Venerable said slowly. Although this is only a fragment, if any of you can obtain it and refine it, you'll be able to obtain an opportunity. Perhaps, you'll be able to collect all the fragments. At that time, you'll be able to obtain a complete extreme immortal weapon. Venerable Spirit Sage's words caused an uproar. An extreme immortal armament. In the history of the 9 regions, it was something that had only appeared in the Primordial Age and the Antiquity Age. In the current era, it didn't even exist 10,000 years ago. If anyone could obtain an extreme immortal armament, it meant that they would be almost invincible. No one would be a match for them. That's right. It's really an extreme immortal armament fragment. I can sense that the spiritual energy contained in it isn't ordinary spiritual energy. It's celestial power. There's a huge difference between it and a heaven-grade spirit artifact. The women in box number 3 stood up abruptly when they saw the fragment of the Mortal Emperor Jar. Their eyes were filled with greed. I must get this fragment. Check how much wealth we have left. Today, even if we have to stake everything we have, we must get this extreme immortal armament fragment. Whoever can obtain an extreme immortal armament will be truly invincible. We must get it. We're under the orders of our sections. We must get this extreme immortal armament fragment. There were many such discussions. Practically all the forces present had come for the sake of obtaining the fragment of an extreme immortal armament. No matter which force it was, they would never let go of this extreme immortal armament fragment. Venerable Spirit Sage suddenly said in the midst of the discussion. The starting price of the extreme immortal armament fragment is 10 million. 100 million. Just as Spiritual Sovereign finished speaking, Gulin abruptly opened his mouth and shouted out a number from the number 10 box. What? He directly called out a price of 100 million? Countless people present were stunned. 100 million spiritual stones for this extreme immortal armament fragment. They didn't expect the first person to call out such a high price. It's just a fragment of an extreme immortal armament. It's not a real extreme immortal armament. Is it worth it? Some of the onlooking cultivators said with jealousy. Before he could finish his sentence, countless numbers were yelled out from the heaven box again. I bid 200 million. 250 million. 300 million. Everyone in the heaven tier boxes began to compete for the fragments of the extreme immortal weapon. The price of the fragments of the extreme immortal weapon rose rapidly. This left everyone dumbfounded. This is crazy. Elder Li's eyes widened. He didn't expect the fragment of the extreme immortal armament to be so valuable. Crazy? Chu Fengmian sneered. How could the price of the fragment of the extreme immortal armament be so low? The last time Chu Fengmian bid for the fragment of the extreme immortal armament, it was in the Qin Empire Kingdom. It was a small and remote place where there were no experts or major forces. That was why Chu Fengmian was able to obtain it. However, this place was the Void Ocean, the gathering place of countless experts in the North region. Moreover, the 6 ancient cave mansions had attracted many experts from the Central and West region. Even the 7 great sects would want to obtain such a fragment of an extreme-grade celestial weapon. The price was too low. 500 million. A voice suddenly rang out. It was the woman in box number 3. Her voice raised the price of the fragment of the extreme immortal armament to 500 million. Thank you, Singularity. I'll lean over and kiss your reward. I'm really busy these days. I can only try my best to keep it updated 4 times a day. I'll definitely update more after this. Thank you for your support. Chapter 585. 500 million spiritual stones were equivalent to 500 royal-grade spiritual stones and 50,000 royal-grade spiritual stones. Bai Xian had only managed to obtain 1 royal-grade spiritual stone after traveling in the void ocean for a long time. Now, she was going crazy to bid for the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon. The crowd's astonishment had yet to dissipate. In the next moment, another voice was heard. I'll bid 1 billion. The voice exploded like a clap of thunder, completely suppressing all the bids. The owner of the voice was none other than 100 Centipede Demon Venerable, who was in room number 2. 100 Centipede Demon Venerable's words had doubled the price of the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon. This doubling was not that simple. It was an increase of 500 million spirit stones all of a sudden. Why can't I get the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon? The eyes of the honorable martial artists below were filled with jealousy. If any of them managed to get their hands on this fragment of an extreme Dao immortal weapon, they would really strike it rich. Damn it, the people of the Earth Demon sect are here too. We don't have enough wealth. In the heaven box, many voices of unwillingness rang out. However, the price of 1 billion spiritual stones was enough to make most of the people back off. 100 Centipede Demon Venerable laughed confidently. Humph, if no one bids, the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon will belong to me. I'll bid 2 billion. As soon as 100 Centipede Demon Venerable finished speaking, a disdainful voice was heard. This voice was unfamiliar to him. He had never heard this person speak before. Who is it? Heaven room number 1? The martial highnesses glanced in the direction of the voice and realized that the voice had come from the first sky booth. The arrangement of the heaven rooms represented the status of each faction. The heaven room number 1 belonged to the sky-reaching pavilion. The item that was auctioned by the sky-reaching pavilion was actually bought by someone from the sky-reaching pavilion. Countless people looked at the spectators stand doubtfully. It seemed like the person who bought the item was a scam. Although the heaven room number 1 belongs to the sky-reaching pavilion, the people inside are not from the sky-reaching pavilion. Please don't worry. Spiritual Venerable explained with a smile. 2 billion spiritual stones. Is there anyone else who is willing to bid higher? 2.5 billion. 100 Centipede Demon Venerable said from the heaven room number 2. 3 billion. 5 billion. 4 billion. No matter what 100 Centipede Demon Venerable said, the people in the heaven room number 1 remained calm, as if they didn't care. Who is the person in the heaven room number 1? To be able to get a private room in the sky-penetrating pavilion, this is someone that even the sky-penetrating pavilion has to curry favor with. This person's wealth is truly frightening. Chu Fengmian could also tell that the calmness and composure of the person in booth number 1 was definitely not an act. It was just that the price was nothing to him. Let's see. With a jolt of his mind, Chu Fengmian's spiritual consciousness drilled into box number 1. He saw 7 or 8 young men standing inside. These young men were all at the 9th level of the divine power realm. Their strength wasn't any weaker than Luo Zhanan's. The strongest among them was even stronger than Flood Prison. Chu Fengmian sensed that this person was hiding a great deal of his strength. Right now, he was just like a sleeping lion. Once he displayed his full strength, he would be able to contend with a high-level life and death realm expert. This aura is the invincible Sage Monarch Mystic technique. Are they from the Sage Monarch sect? Chu Fengmian sensed the aura of these people and instantly understood. These people were from the Sage Monarch sect, one of the 7 major sections. The Sage Monarch sect was considered ancient among the 7 major sections. It was even more ancient than the ancient Desolate sect. Senior brother Jianwang, you must get the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon. A Sage Monarch sect disciple said fawningly to the strongest person in the group. The fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon is a treasure that has never appeared in our central region. If you can get it, I'm afraid you will become a big shot in our Sage Monarch sect. Humph, I thought this remote place was nothing when I came to the North region. I didn't expect to find the cave mansion of the Yin-Yang demon venerable and obtain his wealth. There are tens of billions of spiritual stones. I want to see who dares to compete with me for the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon. Jianwang said arrogantly. His words were filled with extreme confidence. How can these natives of the North region compete with me? I want to see what they are capable of. The guys from the Northern region are just some aborigines. The fragment of the extreme way immortal weapon will only be covered in dust if it falls into their hands. Only when it falls into the hands of senior brother Jianwang will it belong to the virtuous. A Sage Monarch sect disciple hurriedly flattered. Senior brother Jianwang, look. The natives in the second box can't bid anymore. The scene was silent for a long time. Then, a voice came out from private room number 2. 2 billion. This was the highest price that Demon Venerate Tian Ho could offer. It was as if all the energy in his body had been drained from his body. 3 billion. Jianwang smiled coldly and casually called out a price. Demon Venerate Tianyang was disappointed by the price. He had used up all his wealth, and he could no longer compete for it. 3 billion. This is a sky-high price. I don't think there has ever been such a price in the Sky-Reaching Pavilion's auction. I wonder who's in the first box. How can he be so rich? The supremacies discussed among themselves. The dust seemed to have settled. Even Jianwang looked confident. His eyes were filled with greed as he looked at the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon. He was extremely excited when he thought about how the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon would belong to him in the next moment. I bid 5 billion. Amidst the silence, Chu Fengmian suddenly spoke up. Like a dark horse, he charged out and raised the price even higher. What? The person in the 11th box bid again. He didn't bid during the Heavenly Demon 9 treasures. I thought he had used up all his wealth, but now he's bidding again. 5 billion, some of the martial artists trembled when they heard this number. 5 billion spiritual stones, how much wealth was that? It was beyond their imagination. Chapter 586. Who is this guy? I'm afraid that even some major forces can't take out 5 billion. Even the president of Tianyu Chamber of Commerce wouldn't be so extravagant. I thought that the matter of the extreme Dao immortal weapon had been settled. I didn't expect this guy to speak again. The spiritual consciousnesses in the heaven box were chatting. They had already withdrawn from the battle. The battle for the fragment of the extreme Dao immortal weapon was between Chu Fengmian in box 11 and Jianwang in box 1. Senior brother Jianwang, I can't believe someone dares to compete with you. A Sage Monarch sect's disciple said coldly. This guy seems to have a lot of wealth. I'm afraid he must have obtained a lot of wealth from the ancient cave abode. That's why he's so extravagant. So what if he has the wealth? I can get all the wealth of the Yin-Yang demon ancestor. I don't believe this guy can compete with me. A sneer appeared in Jianwang's eyes. 6 billion. Jianwang casually shouted out another number. However, Jianwang felt a little displeased deep down. The fragment of the extreme path celestial weapon had almost fallen into his hands. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to suddenly appear and completely disrupt his plan. However, Jianwang was confident that it wouldn't be difficult for him to get the fragment of the extreme Dao immortal weapon with his wealth. 7 billion. Chu Fengmian shouted out another number. His tone was the same as Jianwang's. He didn't seem to care about the sky-high price of 7 billion. Chu Fengmian had the Blood Sea, and the wealth in the Blood Sea could be counted in the trillions. He wouldn't even bat an eye at 70 billion, let alone 7 billion. 8 billion. Qian Yuan's eyes flashed with a strange light as he spoke again. Before his voice died away, Chu Fengmian's voice rang out again. 9 billion. Damn it. Qian Yuan's face was full of anger. This had completely ruined his plan. He had never thought that Chu Fengmian would dare to contend with him. 10 billion. I'll bid 10 billion. Qian Yuan said, gritting his teeth. Boy, let's see how you're going to compete with me. 10 billion? It's just 10 billion spiritual stones. You want to buy the fragment of the extreme Dao immortal weapon with such a small amount of wealth? Chu Fengmian's cold voice rang out from the box. 20 billion spirit stones. Boom! This sentence simply caused the minds of countless people present to go blank. 20 billion spirit stones. The price had actually doubled once again. This kind of bidding method was simply not treating spirit stones as wealth. It was as if Chu Fengmian's wealth was endless. Who is this person? 20 billion spiritual stones. There are very few people in the void ocean who can take out 20 billion spiritual stones. Is this that old antique? Or someone who had obtained a great opportunity in the ancient cave mansion? No matter which one it is, it's not easy to deal with. We can't investigate anymore. I'm afraid that this person's origin is very unpredictable. Voices rang out in the heaven box. If the wealth that Chu Fengmian had shown before was enough to make them want to seize the opportunity to plunder it. Now, the wealth was no longer something that could be stolen. Regardless of whether it was the old antiques or the people who had obtained great fortune from the cave, they were all extremely terrifying existences that couldn't be provoked. You! When Qian Yuan heard Chu Fengmian's number, he was also stunned. His face flushed red, as if he was so angry that he couldn't speak. Such a domineering and ruthless method of using wealth to crush him simply made him furious. 30 billion. I'll pay 30 billion. Qian Yuan crazily opened his mouth. The anger in his voice simply swept through the entire venue. Qian Yuan's strength was not below high-level life and death realm. His anger caused the restrictions on the box to begin to tremble. Obviously, he was extremely angry. However, compared to Qian Yuan, Chu Fengmian's face was extremely calm. 30 billion? It's just a small matter. I'll pay 40 billion. Chu Fengmian calmly opened his mouth. Although his words were calm, they increased the price by 10 billion. 10 billion spiritual stones came out of Chu Fengmian's mouth casually. It was as if it wasn't 10 billion spiritual stones, but 100 spiritual stones. Moreover, even 100 spiritual stones wouldn't be enough for a martial artist to be so extravagant. Little guy, don't compete with me. You can't compete with me. All your wealth is just a small matter in my eyes. Chu Fengmian's faint voice resounded. If Qian Yuan heard this, he would simply die from anger. Qian Yuan had obtained the wealth of an ancient cave mansion. This wealth was simply enormous compared to the heritage of many sections. He didn't expect to be ridiculed like this. Damn it. Kid, you forced me to do this. 50 billion. Qian Yuan crazily roared. He originally didn't intend to bet all his wealth, but at this time, Qian Yuan was in a frenzy. Now, all his thoughts were to overwhelm Chu Fengmian and obtain the fragment of the extreme immortal weapon. 60 billion. Chu Fengmian casually spoke again. He didn't care at all, adding 10 billion spiritual stones each time. There was even a hint of playfulness in his tone, as if he was playing a game with Qian Yuan. Everything was under Chu Fengmian's control. 70 billion. Qian Yuan gritted his teeth and coldly snorted. 80 billion. Chu Fengmian calmly said. This price was getting increasingly inflated, making people shudder with fear. What kind of concept was 80 billion spiritual stones? If released, it was enough to pile up into a mountain and crush people to death. The countless cultivators present did not expect that there was actually someone who could possess such wealth. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. In the first box, Jianwang was simply in a frenzy, burning with anger. Jianwang looked at the other sage monarch sect disciples in the box and shouted loudly. Contribute all your wealth to me. Yes. These sage monarch sect disciples didn't dare to resist and hurriedly handed over all their wealth, gathering all their wealth together. The current Jianwang was like a crazy gambler. In order to win the bet, he was willing to pay any price and go all out. 10 million. I'll pay 10 million. Jianwang's words had sealed the deal. He had suppressed all his wealth, including the wealth of the disciples of the sage monarch sect. He shouted out this absolute number, 100 billion? This is the wealth you can take out? It's just SOSO. I said that your wealth is nothing in front of me. 110 billion. Chu Fengmian calmly said. As soon as this number came out, Jianwang's face froze. Jianwang opened his mouth in a daze, unable to say a word for a long time. Chapter 587. 110 billion in wealth might be an astronomical figure to others, but to Chu Fengmian, it wasn't necessarily much. He had the Blood Sea, and the spiritual stones in the Blood Sea were worth billions. Chu Fengmian only needed to extract the spiritual energy from the Blood Sea and exchange all the essence of the blood energy in it for the purest spirit stone wealth. 110 billion spiritual stones? Can he really afford it? Many martial artists could not help but murmur to themselves. A wealth of 110 billion was more than the foundation of many first-rate forces. Could a single person really take out such a huge amount of wealth? Senior brother Jianwang, don't worry. This person must be bidding recklessly. How can he afford 110 billion spiritual stones? A sage monarch sect disciple in room 1 said hurriedly. If he can't afford it, senior brother Jianwang, he will be destroyed by the sky-reaching pavilion. That's right. Jianwang's expression softened when he heard the sage monarch sect disciple's words. Kid, you win this time. Not bad. I want to see if you can take out so much wealth. If you can't afford it, I will kill you now. Jianwang's words were full of killing intent. Many people looked at room 11, where Chu Fengmian was. Indeed, it was unknown whether or not Chu Fengmian could take out such a huge amount of wealth. Can't afford it? Do you think I'm a pauper like you who can't afford it? Chu Fengmian's sneering voice rang out from box 11. Watch carefully. Boom! The door of room 11 suddenly opened. A long river flowed out of it. It was made up of countless royal-grade spiritual stones. There were even some spirit stones that were purer than king-grade spirit stones. Royal-grade spiritual stones. The supremacy martialists almost went crazy when they saw the river of spiritual stones. That's right. It's 110 billion spiritual stones. Spiritual Reverend Jianwang counted them and found that there were 110 billion spiritual stones. This fragment of the extreme Dao moral armament belongs to this distinguished one. Spiritual Venerable raised his hand, and the restriction on the fragment of the Emperor jar was completely broken. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and the fragment was directly swept away by Chu Fengmian. Elderly, I'll take my leave first. Chu Fengmian said to Elderly after putting away the fragment of the Emperor jar. Then, with Bai Xian, his body moved and he left. That person left. Chase after them. This person has boundless wealth on him. If any of us can get it, we can reach the heavens in a single bound. Many figures chased after Chu Fengmian when they saw him leaving. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian left the auction venue in the blink of an eye. They left the sky-penetrating pavilion and traveled through the primal chaos continent. Chu Fengmian, there seems to be quite a number of people chasing after us. The people in box number 1 and box number 10 are chasing after us. As she fled, Bai Xian looked behind her. Behind them, several streaks of light chased after them. They were filled with murderous intent. Obviously, they had no intention of letting Chu Fengmian go. Especially Jianwang and Gulin. Chu Fengmian had robbed them of so many things at the auction, which was a slap to their faces. The two of them had no intention of letting Chu Fengmian go. They chased after him one by one. It doesn't matter. Let them chase. These people don't know what's good for them. I just want to kill them. The people of the 7 sects must all die. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Since these people had come to die, Chu Fengmian would not be polite. Anyway, the people of the 7 sects all deserve to die. Chu Fengmian would not let any of them go. The 2 streaks of light flew all the way to the most remote south of the primal chaos continent. Senior brother Jianwang, this person's streaks of light are so fast. Our streaks of light can barely keep up with him. Behind Chu Fengmian, a group of sage monarch sect disciples chased after Chu Fengmian with streaks of light. Their streaks of light were incomparably mysterious. Vaguely, they had the aura of ancient sages. They were known as sage monarchs, the kings of the righteous path. This person can't escape. I've already planted a seal on his body. No matter where he goes, he won't be able to escape. Jianwang said coldly. He's trying his best to escape and refine the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon. It won't be that easy. This person dares to compete with me. He's my enemy. Only death awaits him. All his treasures in the fragment of the extreme path immortal weapon will belong to me. Let's go. Let's chase after him. Countless sage monarch sect disciples turned into streaks of light and chased after Chu Fengmian. Senior brother Gulin, the people of the sage monarch sect seemed to be in front. Behind the streaks of light, there was a group of people chasing after Chu Fengmian. This group of people were the disciples of the ancient Baron sect in Box 10. The people of the sage monarch sect. I heard that Jianwang obtained a great opportunity in the ancient cave mansion. Looking at his wealth, it's obvious that he obtained a great opportunity. Gulin looked to the front and said coldly. Let's follow behind and let that kid fight with the people of the sage monarch sect. Judging from his wealth, he must have obtained a great opportunity. When they're injured, we'll catch them all in one fell swoop. Gulin's eyes flashed with greed as he said coldly. The people of the sage monarch sect and that kid will all become my stepping stones. All their treasures will belong to me. The 3 streaks of light chased after Chu Fengmian all the way to the southernmost part of the primal chaos continent. The southernmost part of the primal chaos continent was the most unstable place in the entire primal chaos continent. Therefore, it was the most desolate place without any martial artists. Chu Fengmian flew continuously until he came to a mountain range. Within 1,000 miles, he could no longer detect any martial artists' auras. Chu Fengmian then slowly stopped. Senior brother Jianwang, it seems that he has stopped. Not far away, the sage monarch sect disciples also noticed that Chu Fengmian had stopped. This kid must have used up a lot of his spiritual energy. That's why he stopped. Let's chase after him and kill him. Jianwang snorted coldly. A few streaks of light rushed over with a swoosh. In an instant, a few figures suddenly appeared beside Chu Fengmian. Chapter 588. A total of 8 sage monarch sect disciples suddenly appeared and descended. Suddenly, the surrounding space was sealed, and an overbearing sage monarch path condensed. The spiritual power of the law turned into thick spiritual power chains, sealing the surrounding space. At that moment, it appeared that Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian were in an incomparably enormous cage. Kid, you can't run anymore. We've been chasing you for a long time. A sage monarch sect disciple stepped forward and said coldly. It was Jianwang. Jianwang's eyes were filled with terrifying killing intent, and he was furious to the extreme. Chu Fengmian had snatched his things at the auction, which was a slap to his face. For someone like Jianwang, it was a great humiliation. It's you? Chu Fengmian pretended to be surprised when he heard Jianwang's words. Why are you chasing me? A sage monarch sect disciple said coldly. Kid, why are you talking so much nonsense? You've committed a great crime by snatching things from our sage monarch sect. You're a dead man now. Kid, do you really think you've offended me? Do you think I'll let you go? Jianwang said evilly. Don't worry, I'll torture you. I've obtained the treasures of the yin-yang demon reverend and countless demonic skills. I can use them on you and make you beg for death. Senior brother Jianwang, there's no need to talk nonsense with this kid. I'll destroy his cultivation first and take all his wealth. Another sage monarch sect disciple said coldly. Look at the girl beside him. She's pretty. How about we destroy this kid's cultivation first, suppress him, and then play with the girl? We haven't touched a girl in a long time since we came to the North region. Oh? Not bad. Jianwang looked at Bai Xian, and there was a hint of lust in his eyes. Okay, let's suppress this kid first and destroy his cultivation. Then, we'll play with the girl in front of him. Damn it. How dare you be part of the 7 major sects? When Bai Xian heard what the sage monarch sect disciples said, she was furious. To be able to say such words, how could they be from the 7 great sects? They were from the righteous path, and were not inferior to the likes of the Earth Demon sect. We are from the North Sea Academy. You dare to treat us like this? Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to explain yourself to the North Sea Academy? What Biming Academy? In front of the 7 great sects, they are nothing but ants. A sage ruler sect disciple said disdainfully. Your northern district is only a remote place among the 9 districts. It is incomparable to the top 7 sections. Even if we were to kill you today, the North Sea Institute would not dare to do anything to us. Alright, let's stop talking nonsense. Let's cripple this brat first and torture him. Then, we'll have fun with this girl. We'll talk later. Another Sage King sect disciple said coldly. Kid, kneel down. The Saint King sect disciple said coldly. Suddenly, he gathered his spiritual chi. Waves of Saint King Tao condensed into an extremely pure spiritual chi in his hands. It suddenly descended from the sky with a terrifying pressure. Kneel down. You want to cripple my cultivation and make me kneel down? Chu Fengmian smiled coldly and took a step forward. You think I can't escape? What a joke. Today, I just want to kill a few more ants. How dare a few ants send themselves to my doorstep to be so arrogant? You! Kneel down. Chu Fengmian pointed at the sage ruler's sect disciple and spiritual chi burst out from his body. Like a sleeping ancient dragon, he suddenly woke up at this moment. The spiritual chi in his body condensed to the extreme. From Chu Fengmian's side, waves of dragon power turned into countless dragon scales and surrounded Chu Fengmian. It made Chu Fengmian look like a half-dragon, half-human existence. Boom! Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and the supreme dragon power turned into an extremely terrifying power. It contained a powerful pressure and exploded in the sky. Now, Chu Fengmian's casual attack was not inferior to the full power of a high-level life and death expert. A single move blasted out, simply shocking the world. Rolling dragon power swept over. The fist wind condensed by the sage ruler Tao of the sage ruler sect was instantly annihilated by the dragon power. The spiritual chi within was directly devoured. Kacha! The sage ruler sect disciple's knees were directly broken. With a crisp sound, he directly knelt in front of Chu Fengmian. Under this move, he was almost powerless to fight back and was forcibly suppressed. What? Damn it. Not good. This person also hid his strength. Don't panic. There are 8 of us. Even if he hid his strength, we can still suppress him. If we join forces, we can suppress high-level life and death experts. A mere divine power kid can easily deal with him. Condense the sage ruler Tao. Transform into the sage ruler godly axe and kill him. Jianwang roared, and the remaining 6 sage ruler sect disciples all exerted their strength. Sage ruler Tao condensed and concentrated on Jianwang's body. In Jianwang's hand, an incomparably huge godly axe suddenly condensed. This godly axe was engraved with extremely ancient patterns. It was a genuine primordial divine weapon. This was the Sage Ruler sect's signature weapon, the Sage Ruler Godly Axe. It was once the #1 Sage Ruler sect's sage ancestors' spirit weapon. It was a heaven-grade spirit weapon infinitely close to an extreme Dao immortal weapon. Now, these Sage Ruler sect disciples had condensed their Sage Ruler Dao to summon the Sage Ruler Godly Axe's phantom image. Although it was just a phantom image, its power had already reached the level of an ordinary heaven-grade spirit weapon. It was not inferior to the rich lush steel in the slightest. Splitting heaven and earth. Sage Ruler invincible. Jianwang roared and suddenly chopped down at Chu Fengmian with the Sage Ruler Godly Axe. This axe was said to be able to split heaven and earth. The terrifying power contained within seemed to want to directly cut Chu Fengmian into pieces. If it was the real Sage Ruler Godly Axe, I might be a little afraid. But it's just a phantom image. Break for me. There was only a sneer in Chu Fengmian's eyes. With a sudden thought, a spiritual sword appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm. Roar! The moment the spiritual sword appeared, a dragon's roar resounded. Countless spiritual energy swept up and rushed towards the Sage Ruler Godly Axe in the sky. This sword was the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword. Chapter 589. As soon as the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword appeared, Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy surged wildly. The ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword was the most precious treasure of the Dragon Clan. It was a perfect match for Chu Fengmian's bloodline, increasing Chu Fengmian's strength by several folds. Boom! The two forces clashed in the sky, and the power of the Saint Ruler Divine Axe was actually blocked by Lin Fan's attack. Crack! In the next moment, faintly visible cracks began to appear on the Sacred Monarch Axe. As the two forces clashed, Jianwang instantly pulled away. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at the cracks on the Holy Ruler Divine Axe. Although the Holy Ruler Divine Axe was just a shadow, its power was comparable to a heaven-grade spiritual weapon when it was formed by their joint efforts. Now, not only was the power blocked by Chu Fengmian, but there were also countless cracks on it. Jianwang could not believe it. What kind of spiritual weapon is that? It's even stronger than the Holy Ruler Divine Axe. A heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Only a heaven-grade spiritual weapon can do that. Jianwang's eyes were fixed on the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword in Chu Fengmian's hand. His eyes were filled with greed. Furthermore, the power of the Holy King Divine Axe has already reached the level of a heavenly grade spiritual weapon. To be able to crack the Holy King Divine Axe, this sword is definitely one of the best heavenly grade spiritual weapons. A heaven-grade spiritual weapon. A heaven-grade spiritual weapon was not an ordinary item even among the 7 major sections. At the very least, Jianwang could not obtain it. The sword in Chu Fengmian's hand was a top heaven-grade spiritual weapon. How could Jianwang not be excited and greedy? No wonder you dare to go against us. You have something to rely on. Jianwang's face was gloomy as he said greedily. But do you think that you can go against the disciples of the Holy Ruler sect with just a heaven-grade spiritual weapon? Aren't you a little too naive? It's a waste for this heaven-grade spiritual weapon to fall into your hands. You probably don't know how terrifying the Holy Ruler sect is. Today, I'll cripple you and take this spiritual weapon so that it won't be wasted. Really? I feel that you are the one who has wasted the inheritance of the Yin-Yang demon venerables. Chu Fengmian looked at Jianwang and laughed. And you Sage Monarch sect disciples. You've all consumed countless miraculous items, and countless spirit medicines. You're all medicine bottles. Once I kill you, I'll extract your quintessence blood, and then I'll absorb all of your power. Give me a boost in strength. Upon hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the disciples of the Sage Monarch sect were enraged to the point of anger. Damn it! Kill him! Countless martial skills fell from the sky. The 7 great sects controlled most of the martial skills in the 9 zones. These martial skills were all mysterious, and were at least Earth-grade martial skills. As they bombarded over, even a high-level life and death realm martial artist would have to retreat. However, Chu Fengmian was not afraid at all. Facing the bombardment of martial skills, Chu Fengmian did not dodge. Instead, he rushed forward. His body suddenly turned into an incomparably huge primordial war dragon. As he swung his body, the martial skill formed by the joint efforts of countless sage rulers' sect disciples was directly destroyed by him. Die! The power of the war dragon swept through the entire space. The surging spiritual power immediately bombarded the sage monarch sect disciples. Damn it! Godly axe cleaving the sky. Qian Yuan roared and once again wielded the sage monarch godly axe, slamming it down. He wanted to help the sage monarch sect disciples resist Chu Fengmian's power. What a joke! You can't even protect yourself, and you dare to help others? I'll destroy this sage monarch godly axe sooner or later. You dare to use its shadow against me? Break! Chu Fengmian roared and slashed down with the ancestral dragon supreme sword. As the sword fell, it was like an ancient war dragon that attacked crazily without any regard for the cost. Boom! It slammed into the sage monarch godly axe. Immediately, the countless cracks on the axe became deeper and more numerous. In the next moment, it shattered. The sage monarch godly axe was shattered into pieces. Qian Yuan's body was blasted away. Damn it! How can this person's strength reach such a terrifying level? This is already more terrifying than a high-level life and death realm expert. How can a divine power realm martial artist, a northern region native, reach such a level of strength? Qian Yuan was sent flying. His mind was filled with the moment when Chu Fengmian broke the sage monarch godly axe. A divine power realm martial artist with such strength was already comparable to the geniuses secretly cultivated by the sage monarch sect. He might even surpass them. The 8 of them joined forces, but they were powerless in front of Chu Fengmian. Gulin! Do you desolate ancient sect people still want to watch the show from the sidelines? This person is no longer human. He's a true monster. If we don't kill him now, he'll be a great threat to us sooner or later. Qian Yuan suddenly roared. In the surrounding space, several figures appeared once again. The leader of the group was the one who had competed with Chu Fengmian in Box 10 during the auction. He was a disciple of the desolate ancient sect, Gulin. Behind Gulin stood a total of 6 sect of the barren ancient sect disciples. Gulin appeared and looked at Qian Yuan with a cold smile. Qian Yuan, I didn't expect you to be forced to this step. You and I are both from the 7 great sections. Today, I'll lend you a hand and help you recover your spiritual power. Gulin's body moved, and a wave of spiritual power shot towards Qian Yuan. He wanted to help Qian Yuan recover his strength. You want to recover your spiritual power in front of me? Desolate ancient sect people, it seems like all of you hidden ants have finally arrived. Well then, today is the time for me to start a massacre. Chu Fengmian sneered, and the power in his body suddenly condensed. In the air, it turned into a huge war dragon claw. It descended from the sky and swept towards Qian Yuan. This claw was enough to shake the continent. It struck out in the air, and the surging dragon power suddenly burst out and suppressed Qian Yuan. Desolate ancient. Gulin's spiritual power also burst out. Under his feet, the desolate ancient great path suddenly condensed. The desolate ancient great path condensed by the desolate ancient sect disciples together was huge. It was much bigger and deeper than what Chu Fengmian had seen in Dragon Emperor Yan's cave abode. It seemed to be bottomless, and it extended to the end of the void, merging with the desolate ancient great path. Chapter 590. Sage Ruler. Qian Yuan also jumped up and devoured countless elixirs. He devoured all the energy in them and burst out with spiritual energy. They were all added to the ancient desolate Great Tao, causing it to grow even larger. Each of the 7 major sects had reached the pinnacle of one kind of power. Now that the ancient desolation path and sage ruler realm had both burst out, a brand new ancient desolation path was formed. It was an indestructible path that no one could shake. Any power that hit it would be transferred to the Desolation Era by the Ancient Desolation Path and disappear in the River of Time. The Ancient Desolation Path was what the Ancient Desolation sect relied on to become one of the 7 major sects. Now that it was combined with the Sage Ruler path of the Sage Ruler sect, its power was invincible. Boom! The gigantic claw of the War Dragon slammed down. The terrifying power of the attack was actually not enough to shake the desolate ancient Tao. The terrifying power was transferred to the River of Time through the Ancient Desolation Path and flowed into the Desolation Era. It did not cause any harm to Guilin at all. Kid, your strength is not bad. You are even stronger than the geniuses of the 7 major sects. Unfortunately, no matter how strong you are, it is meaningless in front of the Ancient Desolation Path. Guilin stood on the Ancient Desolation Path and looked down at Chu Fengmian with a cold smile. Give up. Hand over all your treasures and kneel down to destroy your cultivation. I will give you a quick death and let you die peacefully. Is that so? You dare to ask me to destroy my cultivation? You must be from the Gu family. Even Gu Zun did not dare to say such a thing. You are just a small ant. How dare you? Chu Fengmian glanced at Guilin as if he was looking at a dead man. Chu Fengmian indifferently spat out these 2 words. Creation. These 2 words were spoken so softly that no one else heard them. The natal sword origin in Chu Fengmian's body moved slowly. The power of the natal sword origin gathered in Chu Fengmian's hand and turned into the legendary sword of creation. Break! Chu Fengmian gently waved the sword of creation in his hand and slashed at the primordial Tao. This sword strike seemed to be very casual, and there was no overbearing power behind it. How laughable. You want to sever my primordial Grand Tao with just this sword? All power must be fused into the primordial. Guilin laughed in disdain. He activated the power of the ancient Baron Tao and charged forward. He wanted to devour the power of the Sword of Creation completely and infuse it into the Desolate Era through the Tao of the Desolate Era. Hiss! As the Sword of Creation approached the desolate ancient Great Path, the power within it was completely unleashed. This power wasn't strong. In fact, it was far inferior to Chu Fengmian's casual attack. However, the power contained within it was extremely mysterious. This kind of profoundness was not something that could be compensated for by the realm of power. Instead, it was a power that was on a completely different level. It was as if it was enough to crush everything in the heavens and dominate the world. The Sword of Creation turned into a sword blade and slashed at the desolate ancient Tao, slashing at it. Immediately, the desolate ancient Great Tao began to tremble. It was as if it had sensed some sort of terrifying power. Kacha! The desolate ancient Great Tao had actually been severed by the Sword of Creation midway through. All the paths connected to the desolate ancient Tao were severed. The desolate ancient Tao beneath Guilin's feet began to shatter without the support of the desolate ancient Tao's power. He fell from above. How is this possible? How is this possible? The desolate ancient Tao has been severed. Guilin's face turned pale. The spiritual energy in his body surged wildly as he tried to form the desolate ancient Tao again to stand in an invincible position. However, no matter how hard he tried, the desolate ancient Tao would shatter every time he tried to form it. This was because the connection between Guilin and the desolate ancient Tao had been completely severed by the power of creation. The power of creation was the strongest power in the world. Regardless of whether it was the desolate ancient Tao or the sage ruler Tao, or any other martial path in the heavens, they would all shatter before the power of creation. This was because the power of creation was the strongest power in the world. Without the desolate ancient Tao, you people from the desolate ancient sect are just a bunch of trash. One sword 10,000 strikes. Kill them all. Chu Fengmian showed no mercy as the ancestral dragon supreme sword in his hand slashed down once more. As the sword swept down, the entire surrounding space turned into a world of swords. Every ray of sword chi was no weaker than a high-level life and death expert's all-out attack. As the sword chi swept across, countless sage monarch sect and desolate ancient sect disciples were directly crushed. Their flesh and blood were devoured by the sword and integrated into Chu Fengmian's body. In Chu Fengmian's hand, they turned into blood-colored crystals. Every disciple of the 7 great sects had to be nurtured with countless resources, large amounts of spiritual herbs, and wondrous items. Their flesh and blood were more nutritious than many wondrous items. Chu Fengmian discarded all the impurities in their bodies and condensed the purest spiritual energy into blood-colored crystals in Chu Fengmian's hand. These blood-red crystals were not inferior to a heaven primordial spirit pill. Among the people present, only Gulin and Jianwang were still struggling bitterly in the endless sword chi. In front of the two of them, there were 2 spiritual artifacts that condensed their power and turned into a barrier that blocked the surrounding sword aura. These 2 spiritual tools were their last resort, their final trump card. Now, they could only bitterly hold on. However, in Chu Fengmian's eyes, this small barrier was just a desperate struggle. Break! Chu Fengmian's hand suddenly clawed, and the barrier was directly shattered. The 2 spiritual tools fell into Chu Fengmian's hand and were thrown into his spatial ring. At the same time, Jianwang and Gulin fell into Chu Fengmian's palm. In Chu Fengmian's palm, they were sealed by waves of spiritual energy. It was like a huge cage that prevented them from escaping. Damn it! Kid, if you dare to kill us, the sects behind us will never let you go. You're from the North Sea Academy, and the Academy will be destroyed by the 7 great sects' fury. Gulin was still crazily roaring in Chu Fengmian's hand. Let us go quickly, and we won't hold you responsible. Let you go? Ridiculous. How dare you threaten me? The 7 great sects will be destroyed sooner or later. Die! Chu Fengmian heard Gulin's words and sneered. With a thought, Gulin's body in Chu Fengmian's palm began to distort and shatter. In the end, it turned into a cloud of blood mist. Chapter 591. Gulin's empty ring was taken away by Chu Fengmian. Gulin's blood mist was also devoured by Chu Fengmian and condensed into a blood-red crystal in his hand. Gulin's blood essence was extremely rich. Chu Fengmian also felt that Gulin's blood meridians contained countless heavenly wonders that had yet to be refined. These heavenly wonders in Gulin's spiritual energy were condensed by Chu Fengmian into the purest spiritual energy crystal. This spiritual energy crystal was much purer than a royal-grade spiritual stone. It was enough for Chu Fengmian to devour and refine during his life and death tribulation. Now that Chu Fengmian had killed Gulin and refined his spiritual energy, it was much more valuable than obtaining a huge treasure. You guys schemed against me. Did you think I wouldn't know? Chu Fengmian's eyes were extremely cold as he looked at Jianwang. You have the inheritance of the Yin-Yang Demon Venerable. Although the Yin-Yang Demon Venerable wasn't a big shot, he must have left behind many things. I'll kill you first to make up for my loss. You want to kill me? Impossible. I have the inheritance of the Yin-Yang Demon Venerable. It won't be easy for you to kill me. Jianwang let out a long roar. The Saint Ruler aura on his body was suddenly swept away. Instead, it was replaced by an endless demonic will that abruptly condensed with a loud bang. A huge yin-yang diagram suddenly appeared from Jianwang's body. Under the power of the yin-yang diagram, a huge amount of spiritual energy suddenly broke through the seal of Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy and broke out of the cage. This is the yin-yang demonic diagram. It's the treasure of the yin-yang demon venerable, a heavenly spiritual weapon. Bai Xian's expression changed when she saw the yin-yang demonic diagram. Not good. The yin-yang demonic diagram is unstoppable. It's not easy to deal with it. Ha ha, so what if you recognize the yin-yang demonic diagram? Today, you're going to die. I didn't intend to use the power of the yin-yang demon venerable, but you guys forced me to do so. Jianwang sneered again and again, like an extremely arrogant devil. All of you, go to hell. The moment the yin-yang demonic diagram appeared, an extremely terrifying pressure suddenly descended upon them. The power of yin and yang turned into an inescapable net that surrounded Chu Fengmian. The power that emerged from the yin-yang demonic diagram immediately condensed and created numerous yin-yang divine swords. They gathered the power of yin and yang and descended from the sky to slay Chu Fengmian. Yin-yang demonic diagram? Heaven-grade spirit artifact? All of this is meaningless before my ancestral dragon supreme sword. Facing the onslaught of the yin-yang demon sword, Chu Fengmian's expression did not change at all. He was extremely calm. Suddenly, the blade in his hand moved. Streams of dragons condensed on the blade in Chu Fengmian's hand. Immediately, the ancestral dragon paragon sword transformed into the appearance of an ancient war dragon. He waved his sword like a real ancient battle dragon, roaring and tearing apart the enemy in front of him. Roar! Dragon roars resounded in the heavens and earth. The blade in Chu Fengmian's hand moved again. This time, his swordsmanship had reached the pinnacle. With a sword, the heavens and earth were about to be slashed and the space was about to be torn apart. It was a sword that could slash everything. Boom! The sword broke through the sky, crossed the endless void, and slashed at the yin-yang demonic diagram. Suddenly, the yin-yang demonic diagram's shadow that emerged from Qian Yuan's body was shattered into countless pieces. The shadow of the yin-yang demonic diagram was shattered by Chu Fengmian. With your strength, you can't activate the power of the yin-yang demonic diagram. The yin-yang demonic diagram is just a part of the spiritual energy that the yin-yang demon sovereign left in your body. You want to fight against me? Chu Fengmian said disdainfully. Chu Fengmian would definitely retreat if the yin-yang demon sovereign came. But Qian Yuan in front of him. He just had a little bit of the yin-yang demon sovereign's power in his body. It was ridiculous to think that he could deal with Chu Fengmian with this power. Dragon dance in the firmament. Dragon rise. Sword move. Chu Fengmian roared. The ancestral dragon supreme sword in his hand was like an ancient battle dragon. Countless sword chi danced in the air. It looked like a dance, but in fact, it contained the strongest martial skill of the dragon clan. In Chu Fengmian's body, there were 12,960 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence. The power in them was activated to the extreme. All of the dragon force eventually turned into a huge sword chi and slashed towards Qian Yuan. Impossible. I've had so many fortuitous encounters, so how could I possibly lose? Yin-yang demonic diagram, show yourself. Show yourself. Qian Yuan roared crazily. Another burst of spiritual energy burst out from his chest. He summoned the yin-yang demonic diagram and blocked Chu Fengmian's sword chi. The yin-yang demonic diagram that appeared was no longer a shadow. It was the real yin-yang demonic diagram. The power displayed by the yin-yang demonic diagram was even more powerful than the abundant lush monument in Chu Fengmian's hand. Facing Chu Fengmian's sword chi, the yin-yang demonic diagram did not only intend to resist, but also burst out with countless spiritual energy. It wanted to turn the tables and suppress Chu Fengmian. A small yin-yang demonic diagram wants to overturn the situation. Both of them are heaven-grade spiritual artifacts, but the gap between them is like a chasm. Chu Fengmian snorted when he saw the scene. The sword chi in his hand moved. The moment the sword chi fell, it slashed at the yin-yang demonic diagram. The spiritual energy contained in the yin-yang demonic diagram began to shatter and break into pieces. Although they were both heaven-grade spiritual artifacts, the ancestral dragon supreme sword was at the peak of heaven-grade spiritual artifacts. Although the yin-yang demonic diagram was also a heaven-grade spiritual artifact, it could not compete with the ancestral dragon supreme sword in terms of strength. Crack! Countless cracks appeared on the yin-yang demonic diagram. In the next moment, it shattered into pieces and scattered in all directions. It was trying to escape. Trying to escape? Chu Fengmian sneered and waved his hand. The yin-yang demonic diagram split into countless pieces and was now in Chu Fengmian's hand. After all, the yin-yang demonic diagram was a heaven-grade spiritual artifact. Even if Chu Fengmian had no use for it, he could give it to others. It was worth a lot. The yin-yang demonic diagram was once the treasure of the yin-yang demonic sovereign. The power of the yin-yang demonic diagram was definitely not weak. Jianwang could not even use 1/10 of its power, which was why he was defeated so miserably. I'm taking a leave of absence. I only have one chapter for today. I'm here to apologize to everyone. I'm sorry. I've been really busy recently. I'll need a few more days to finish. I can only finish the chapter when I'm done. I'll definitely get back the chapters 1-0. Don't worry. Chapter 592. The yin-yang demonic diagram was a heaven-grade spirit artifact. It was the greatest treasure Jianwang had obtained from the yin-yang demon sovereign's cave. It had always been his trump card, but now, Chu Fengmian had torn it to shreds. This person is already an undefeatable existence. Jianwang's eyes flickered as this thought emerged in his mind. Run! Jianwang's figure moved. He waved his hand, and a surge of spiritual energy shot out. Yin and yang energy condensed, forming a yin-yang dharma idol. Jianwang suddenly spat out a drop of demonic blood. This drop of demonic blood fused with the yin-yang dharma idol, causing it to instantly swell. Yin-yang demon sovereign's essence blood? The moment he saw this drop of demonic blood, Chu Fengmian recognized it. This drop of demonic blood was the yin-yang demon sovereign's essence blood. Jianwang's figure immediately fused with the yin-yang dharma idol, turning into a streak of light. He was actually planning to escape. Want to escape? No one can escape from the people I want to kill. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted as he watched Jianwang escape. His hand clawed, breaking through the void and grabbing Jianwang's figure. What? My escape light can travel 1,000 miles in an instant. How could I be caught? Jianwang's face suddenly changed. He had even sacrificed the yin-yang demon sovereign's essence blood to obtain power. He wanted to turn into a streak of light and escape. However, he had never imagined that he would be caught by Chu Fengmian. With Jianwang's current strength, even a high-level life and death realm expert would be able to retreat and advance as he wished. But now, he was powerless in Chu Fengmian's hands. It was as if running away was meaningless. In front of Chu Fengmian, there was no way to escape. I'm a character of the 7 great sects, a true genius. How could I die today? Jianwang had never imagined that he would die in the hands of Chu Fengmian, a mere northern region native. You talk too much. Die for me. Chu Fengmian looked at Jianwang and roared. The spiritual energy in his hands suddenly swelled. Jianwang was squeezed in Chu Fengmian's hand, causing his face to turn red. Bang! In the next moment, Jianwang's body exploded and turned into a cloud of blood mist. His blood essence was devoured by Chu Fengmian and condensed into a blood essence. At the same time, an empty ring flew out from Jianwang's shattered body. Chu Fengmian took the empty ring and poured his spiritual power into it. Looking at the wealth inside, he couldn't help but feel happy. This Jianwang is really lucky. He actually obtained the yin-yang demon venerable's cave. He didn't even have time to refine the treasures left behind by the yin-yang demon venerable. All of them belong to me. Chu Fengmian was overjoyed when he saw the countless treasures left behind. Originally, Chu Fengmian didn't have enough mystical items on him for the sacred sacrifice, so he planned to buy some more. But now, after obtaining Jianwang's wealth, he had prepared all the wondrous items needed for Chu Feng's sacred sacrifice. This Jianwang has given a big gift. Chu Fengmian sneered in his heart. These desolate ancient sect and sage monarch sect disciples wanted to kill Chu Fengmian and seize his wealth. But now, they were killed by Chu Fengmian. All of their wealth and opportunities now belong to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, you killed Jianwang and Gulin. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with the aftermath. Bai Xian said worriedly from the side. The two of them had high positions in their respective sections. They weren't ants. It's fine. After killing them, the people of the seven sects won't be able to deduce that it was me. Moreover, their positions in the seven sects were just small characters. Chu Fengmian said casually. When we return to Beimang Academy, we'll be promoted to seed disciples. Once we become seed disciples, we can go to Beimang's sacred region, the sacred land of Beimang Academy, to cultivate. At that time, as long as I enter the life and death realm, I'll be able to deal with anyone other than those old fogies of the seven sections. It won't be easy for them to chase after me. Chu Fengmian said confidently. Everyone in the seven sects was afraid, but Chu Fengmian wasn't the slightest bit afraid. He was the person who wanted to destroy the seven sections. Now, he had only killed a few disciples. What was there to be afraid of? This is the south of Primal Chaos Continent, the most remote place. Now that those people have been dealt with, it's the best place to hold the sacred sacrifice. Chu Fengmian glanced at the surroundings. There was no one around. The sacred sacrifice couldn't be disturbed. A quiet place like this was the best choice. We'll hold the complete sacred sacrifice here. Bai Xian, you stay here. This sacred sacrifice will also bring you great benefits. Chu Fengmian glanced at Bai Xian and said. The sacred sacrifice was a method used by some tribes in the ancient era to offer sacrifices to the heavens. The benefits obtained from it were enough to bring great benefits to a tribe. If Chu Fengmian was alone, he wouldn't be able to take all the benefits of the sacred sacrifice. It just so happened that he could also help Bai Xian condense her strength. Chu Fengmian wanted to return to Beimang Academy. Yi Tianjun and the others had a huge force in the academy. Chu Fengmian also needed to establish his own force. This Bai Xian was the best person for him to rope in. All right. Bai Xian nodded. She didn't doubt Chu Fengmian's words. The more she knew about Chu Fengmian's hidden strength, the more Bai Xian understood that relying on Chu Fengmian was the best choice. If she followed Chu Fengmian all the way, she might really reach a level she couldn't imagine. Let's set up the sacred sacrifice first. Chu Fengmian didn't hesitate. He took out countless strange objects from his spatial ring and gave a portion of them to Bai Xian. He wanted her to help him set up the sacred sacrifice. Two figures flashed in the south of Primal Chaos Continent. Strange objects were set up one after another. In the surroundings, there was an incomparably huge altar rising into the air. Around the altar, there were many mystical items from the heavens, all of which were being used as sacrificial offerings. The sacred sacrifice was a sacrifice to the will of the heavens. Strange objects were used to exchange for the Supreme Will's reward. It took a total of 3 days to set up the sacred sacrifice. This was with the cooperation of Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. If Chu Fengmian was alone, he wouldn't be able to complete it in 5 days. Alright, the setup of the sacred sacrifice has finally been completed. As long as it succeeds, my body will be refined to the pinnacle and I will even obtain unimaginable benefits. Chapter 593. In a desolate land in the southern part of Primal Chaos Continent, an incomparably huge altar was suddenly completed. All kinds of heavenly treasures were arranged around the altar. If many martial artists were to see them, they would go mad with jealousy and try to seize them. However, all of these heavenly treasures were arranged around the altar as offerings. Two figures were standing before the altar. They were Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. All living beings under the heavens, sacrifice to heaven's will. Chu Fengmian roared. All of a sudden, various changes took place on the altar. Countless strange runes suddenly appeared on the altar. These strange patterns were extremely ancient. Even the most knowledgeable person couldn't understand their meaning. This was because these were characters born from the primal chaos before the birth of mankind. Mysterious and obscure, each character contained the truth of heaven and earth. Rumble. An incomparably huge face seemed to appear in the sky above the altar. This face looked like a human's face, a beast's face, a demonic beast's face, a demon's face, a strange beast's face. It was as if the face of all living beings under the heavens could be found in this face. This face was the face of heaven's will. It was the face of the entire world. Sacrifice. Seeing the appearance of this face, Chu Fengmian waved his hand. The Nirvana Dragon Egg, Fortune Branch, and Dragon Monarch Claw all flew into the altar. When they reached the altar, they were immediately integrated with countless primal chaos characters. Then, these three treasures all flew into the sky and were directly swallowed by that strange face. Rumble. After a long time, countless spiritual energies suddenly poured down from the sky. This spiritual energy pouring down was even more terrifying than a tsunami. If it bombarded a martial artist's body, perhaps even a high-level life and death realm martial artist wouldn't have any chance of resisting. This is... Bai Xian's face revealed some nervousness. She circulated the spiritual energy in her body, as if she wanted to resist. Don't resist. This spiritual energy is heaven's will's reward. Chu Fengmian roared. Only then did Bai Xian disperse all the spiritual energy in her body. She was somewhat nervous and somewhat expectant as she watched the spiritual energy pouring down from the sky. Rumble. Waves of spiritual energy poured down and washed over Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian. My strength has actually increased again? How is that possible? The moment the spiritual energy entered Bai Xian's body, Bai Xian felt that her strength had increased by another step. The spiritual energy in Bai Xian's body had already reached the limit of the divine power realm. This also meant that no matter what extraordinary items she devoured, she would not be able to advance any further. Only if one chose to cross the life and death calamity and enter the life and death realm would it be possible. But now, under the feedback of the heaven's will, her strength began to rise again. Even Bai Xian herself couldn't believe it. Hearing Bai Xian's words, Chu Fengmian smiled inwardly. This limit of strength was nothing in the face of heaven's will. The power of heaven's will was enough to break through the limit. In ancient times, some experts would use the sacred sacrifice in order to reach the limit of their strength. They would use the power of heaven's will to break through their limits. However, this was an extremely extravagant act. One must know how much wealth Chu Fengmian had spent to hold this sacred sacrifice. He had only been able to hold this sacred sacrifice because he had obtained a large amount of treasures from Jianwang and the others' spatial rings. If he were to hold this sacred sacrifice again, Chu Fengmian might not be able to find everything even if he broke his head. It's my turn now. Behind Chu Fengmian, the ancient battle dragon's shadow condensed by the battle dragon art was clearly visible. It was surging with a strange light. Waves of spiritual energy also washed over Chu Fengmian's body and merged with it. However, no matter how much spiritual energy there was, it could not condense another drop of ancient battle dragon's blood essence. Now, the ancient battle dragon's blood essence in Chu Fengmian's body had reached its limit. This was an unchanging rule since ancient times. Even heaven's will could not change all of this. However, the waves of spiritual energy merged with Chu Fengmian's body and merged with every part of Chu Fengmian's flesh. It caused Chu Fengmian's flesh to recombine and condense countless times. Every time it was recombined and condensed, it made Chu Fengmian's body stronger. Finally, after another shattering, Chu Fengmian's flesh was no longer blood red, but a golden color. Only the flesh and blood of the primordial battle dragon would have a golden color. Now, not only the blood in Chu Fengmian's body, but even his flesh began to transform into the ancient battle dragons. It is said that when the ancient battle dragon reaches adulthood, it will condense a dragon body. The strength of the dragon body also determines the future strength of the ancient battle dragon. I wonder how strong the dragon body that I condense will be. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. At the same time, he crazily devoured countless spiritual energies and merged them into Chu Fengmian's body. Bam! 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 Chu Fengmian's flesh was torn apart and recombined step by step. In the blink of an eye, Chu Fengmian's flesh had turned golden and he had become a real battle dragon's body. Within the golden flesh and blood, one could clearly see some ancient patterns. These lines were the dragon language, one of the most ancient languages. Although it was not as ancient as the chaotic language, it contained the true essence of the Dragon Clan. These dragon language condensed in Chu Fengmian's flesh and turned into the eyes of a formation. It turned Chu Fengmian's body into a formation and continuously supported Chu Fengmian's power. Ancient Dragon King Body. With this formation, my body has reached the level of the ancient Dragon King Divine Body. Chu Fengmian could feel that his current power was countless times stronger than before. Although Chu Fengmian's realm and the ancient battle dragon's blood essence did not change, his body had reached the level of the ancient battle dragon's body. However, his body had also reached the level of a real ancient battle dragon. It was enough to exert the power of his blood to the extreme. There was no change in his power, but Chu Fengmian's current strength was countless times stronger than before. My strength has reached such a level. Bai Xian, who was standing beside Chu Fengmian, slowly opened her eyes. Sensing the power in her body, Bai Xian seemed to be in disbelief. Her current strength had vaguely surpassed the geniuses of the 7 major sects, such as Jianwang and Gulin. Chapter 594. Gulin and Jianwang were peerless geniuses that the 7 great sects had spent countless resources to nurture. Bai Xian's current strength had already surpassed theirs. All of this was due to the power of the sacred sacrifice. With my current strength, I'm afraid I can pass through a life and death calamity in an instant. Bai Xian said slowly. She could feel that with her current strength, she could pass through a life and death calamity with a wave of her hand. In fact, after passing through the life and death calamity, his strength would most likely reach the high level of life and death realm. He was only one step away from becoming a big shot. After surviving the life and death calamity, I should return to the Beimang Academy first. It's rumored that the Beimang sacred region of the Beimang Academy also has unique methods and secret techniques that can increase one's strength. It's not too late to return. Chu Fengmian said slowly. Chu Fengmian's body had reached the great success stage. Now, he could choose to transcend the great calamity of life and death at will. However, Chu Fengmian didn't dare to underestimate this life and death calamity. When he was breaking through to the divine power realm, he had already attracted the 10,000 Thunder Emperor's calamity. Now that he was facing a true life and death calamity, it would probably be even more terrifying than the 10,000 Thunder Emperor's calamity. Chu Fengmian didn't plan to cross the life and death tribulation before he was fully prepared. Moreover, with his strength, it was easy for him to draw out the life and death tribulation. Therefore, Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid of encountering danger. He could draw out a life and death calamity at any time to break through. That's right. If we return to the Northern Mang Academy now, we will definitely be promoted to Seed Disciples. It is said that the Seed Disciples of the Northern Mang Academy are the ones that are truly nurtured by the Northern Mang Academy. Bai Xian said. Most of the Seed Disciples of the Northern Mang Academy will head to the Northern Mang Sacred Region to cultivate. It is said that there are some secret techniques unique to the Northern Mang Academy, and they will be heavily nurtured by the Northern Mang Academy. Although Luo Zhanhan's strength is not bad, he has never had the opportunity to be promoted to a Seed Disciple. Qianyuan and Gulin are only considered average among the Seed Disciples in Northern Mang Sanctuary. Oh? People like Qianyuan and Gulin can only be considered as average among the Seed Disciples? Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised. The strength of these two people was already not bad. Although they were not at the level of the true geniuses of the 7 major sects, they were still stronger than most of the disciples. Originally, he thought that the Northern Mang Academy was just a newly risen sect. It didn't have much foundation and couldn't nurture extreme geniuses. However, from what Bai Xian had said, this Northern Mang Academy was much more mysterious than he had imagined. However, Chu Fengmian was not worried. With his current strength and aptitude, he had already surpassed the Divine Force realm. Even many life and death realm experts would not be a match for Chu Fengmian. Even if he was promoted to a Seed Disciple, Chu Fengmian was not worried. Chu Fengmian also wanted to know more about the unique secret techniques of Northern Mang Sanctuary. Even the top 10 inner disciples of the Northern Mang Academy would only be able to learn some incomplete and crude secret techniques. The Northern Mang Academy's unique secret technique could only be learned by those above the seed disciple level. Such mysteriousness naturally piqued Chu Fengmian's interest. I have already gained a lot from this trip to the Void Sea. Now, I can prepare to return to the North Sea Academy. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. This trip to the Void Sea had brought Chu Fengmian countless benefits. His strength had been raised to the peak and he had also obtained the endless treasures of the Blood Sea. Of course, among all the treasures, the most beneficial one for Chu Fengmian was still the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword. As a sword cultivator, Chu Fengmian needed a suitable spiritual sword. Moreover, he cultivated the Battle Dragon art and possessed the bloodline of the ancient Battle Dragon. The ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword was definitely the most suitable spiritual sword for Chu Fengmian. Unless Chu Fengmian obtained another spiritual sword that had reached the level of an extreme great immoral weapon, the ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword was enough to accompany Chu Fengmian for a lifetime. Alright, let's go. Bai Xian nodded her head in satisfaction and left with Chu Fengmian. She had already gained a lot from this trip to the Void Sea. When she had just arrived in the Void Sea, her strength was only considered average among the martial artists in the Void Sea. If Bai Xian were to display her full strength now, she would definitely be an overlord that no one would dare to provoke. Most of the benefits she gained were from Chu Fengmian. 2 streaks of escaping light flew away from the primal chaos continent and headed for the Void Ocean. They gradually came to the border of the Void Ocean and returned to the northern region in an instant. With Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian's strength, they broke through the space as soon as they left the Void Sea. The streaks of light were extremely fast and they returned to the Northern Mang Academy in an instant. The Northern Mang Academy was still as lively as before. However, compared to before Chu Fengmian left, many of the newcomers in the same batch as Chu Fengmian had risen. For example, Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan had also begun to rise. Their strength had already reached the top 10 of the Inner Sect Earth ranking. Their strength had already reached the peak of the Divine Power realm. They only needed to accumulate a little more and they would be able to pass the Life and Death realm martial artists. Chu Fengmian and Bai Xian returned to the Northern Mang Academy and swaggered without concealing themselves. With their strength, it was hard to find an opponent in the Northern Mang Academy. The Seed Disciples and Core Disciples were all in the Northern Mang Sacred Region. Naturally, the 2 of them did not need to conceal themselves. They were incomparably arrogant as they directly entered Bai Xian's cave. This streak of light is so arrogant. It's simply provoking everyone. Who is it? Could it be Luo Changhen? Only Luo Changhen has the qualifications to be so arrogant. It's not Luo Changhen, it's Bai Xian and Chu Fengmian from the outer sect. These 2 have disappeared for a while. Could it be that they had a fortuitous encounter? However, they want to be arrogant just because they had a fortuitous encounter. Aren't they too arrogant? Let's wait and see. Currently, many of our Northern Mang Academy's inner sect disciples have also obtained fortuitous encounters in the Void Sea. That Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan even want to pursue that Hanyue Li. They see Chu Fengmian as a thorn in their side. They will definitely make a move. Voices of discussion rang out. Chu Fengmian's expression was extremely calm. There was even deep disdain in his eyes. Right now, Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan were no different from ants in Chu Fengmian's eyes. There was no one in the inner sect who could enter Chu Fengmian's eyes. Looking at Chu Fengmian's current opponents, they were at least the Seed Disciples or Core Disciples of the Northern Mang Academy. Chu Fengmian even wanted to fight with the number 1 disciple of the Northern Mang Academy, Yi Tianjun. Chapter 595. Chu Fengmian looked at Bai Xian and smiled. Our return this time has caused quite a stir. The 2 of them did not hide their return. Of course, it was not to be arrogant, but to show off their strength. The Seed Disciples of the Northern Mang Academy did not need to be tested, but were personally selected by the elders of the Academy. Only those who performed well in the inner sect would be invited to become a seed disciple. Therefore, if they wanted to become a seed disciple, they had to display their strength. Bai Xian glanced at Chu Fengmian and said, "With your status, there will definitely be a lot of blind people coming. You better not go overboard. After all, this is the Northern Mang Academy. It will be hard to explain if someone dies." "Of course." Chu Fengmian nodded. "Those ants, I will only teach them a lesson. I will not kill them directly." Chu Fengmian did not intend to fall out with the Northern Mang Academy. Now that someone died, no one could step forward. However, if someone dared to provoke Chu Fengmian, he would naturally punish them. While the two of them were talking, two streaks of light suddenly flew to the surroundings of Bai Xian's cave. It was simply a provocation for this streak of light to barge into the vicinity of the cave abode. "Look! It's senior brother Yan Gu and senior brother Maijan." The two of them were accepted as disciples by the elders. They just recently returned to the Northern Mang Academy, and now they are here. The two of them are now comparable to the top 10 of the Earth ranking, and they are still hiding their strength. If they really go all out, I'm afraid that they can compete for the top 3 of the Earth ranking. Look, the two of them are really attacking. The disciples of the Northern Mang Academy spoke one after another. They naturally knew about the relationship between Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli. At the same time, they also knew that Yan Gu was pursuing Han Yueli. Now that Han Yueli could not be dealt with, they naturally had to attack Chu Fengmian. "Chu Fengmian, get out here!" An angry roar suddenly rang out. Yan Gu was standing in the air. Around him, the surrounding space condensed into a crystal barrier. This crystal barrier seemed to be formed by the surrounding space, and it constantly protected Yan Gu's body. This is the Jade Mirror Divine Protection Art. It's an extremely mysterious defensive secret technique unique to the Northern Mang Academy. Generally, only seed disciples can come into contact with it, but Yan Gu has actually mastered it. A North Sea Academy disciple looked at the crystal barrier beside Yan Gu and muttered. The jade mirror barrier that was formed around Yan Gu was able to protect his body at all times. It was an absolutely powerful defensive secret technique. Unless one could break the jade mirror, Yan Gu would be invincible. Evidently, after Yan Gu was accepted as an elder's disciple, he had received tremendous benefits and his strength had improved. Jade Mirror Divine Protection? Given his status, it should be impossible for him to be qualified to come into contact with it. It would appear that it was bestowed to him by his master, Elder Yugui. Bai Xian slowly said. Looks like Elder Yugui really thinks highly of him. He actually didn't hesitate to violate the sect's rules to bestow such a technique upon him. To be able to grow to such a level in such a short period of time, the nurturing behind the scenes is absolutely indispensable. Chu Fengmian said casually, not taking Yan Gu seriously at all. When Chu Fengmian had just entered the Northern Mang Academy, he was still somewhat fearful of Yan Gu during the assessment. However, now that Chu Fengmian had obtained the Ancestral Dragon Supreme Sword and obtained countless opportunities in the Void Ocean, Yan Gu was like an ant in Chu Fengmian's eyes. He wasn't even qualified for Chu Fengmian to take him seriously. What? Chu Fengmian, are you going to be a coward? Hiding in a woman's cave dwelling is ridiculous. How can a person like you be worthy of Han Yueli? Seeing that Chu Fengmian did not reply, Yan Gu became even more arrogant. If you don't come out, I'll wait for you here and see when you'll come out. Oh? If I'm not worthy, do you think you're worthy? Chu Fengmian sneered. When he heard Yan Gu's words, a mocking smile appeared on his face. Not to mention whether Chu Fengmian was worthy of Han Yueli, Yan Gu and Han Yueli were worlds apart. Han Yueli was a seed disciple, a person that the Northern Mang Academy had focused on nurturing. Although Yan Gu was an elder's disciple, he was not even a seed disciple. Damn it! When Yan Gu heard Chu Fengmian's words, anger appeared on his face. What Chu Fengmian had mentioned was simply something that made him furious. When Yan Gu saw Han Yueli in the assessment, he had the thought of subduing Han Yueli. However, the difference in status between him and Han Yueli was like heaven and earth. Chu Fengmian's words had poked his sore spot. Yan Gu roared furiously. Chu Fengmian, even if I, Yan Gu, am not worthy, you, Chu Fengmian, are also not worthy. If you don't come out, I'll smash this cave dwelling. As Yan Gu spoke, his spiritual energy suddenly erupted. Layers of jade mirrors intertwined with each other, and the light that was contained within them was extremely terrifying. You want me to come out? I just want to play with you for a while longer. Since you want to teach me a lesson, I'll teach you a lesson. Chu Fengmian looked at Yan Gu and sneered. He moved his body and left the cave dwelling, standing in the air. Chu Fengmian, you've finally come out. You're not a coward anymore. Seeing Chu Fengmian come out, Yan Gu's face became even more arrogant. What? You want to teach me a lesson? Ridiculous. You? You're just an insignificant outer disciple. You're not even selected by the elder. How dare you say that you want to teach me a lesson? Ridiculous. Brother Yan, please be gentle. This is the Northern Mang Academy after all. It's not good to kill him. Just destroy his cultivation and kick him out of the Northern Mang Academy. Mu Yezhan, who was beside Yan Gu, also spoke. Chu Fengmian, I don't have any enmity with you. However, I heard that you've been extremely arrogant since you arrived at the Northern Mang Academy. You've destroyed many disciples' cultivation. Today, we'll destroy you and get rid of a threat for the Northern Mang Academy. Cripple his cultivation? It's too easy for him to get rid of him. Yan Gu licked his lips and said with a ferocious expression. I'll plant a seal in his body and turn him into my dog. I'll bring him to Hanueli and see if Hanueli will still like this trash. What Northern Mang Academy's rules? I've only destroyed an outer disciple. How dare the Northern Mang Academy punish me? Mu Yezhan spoke as if Yan Gu was already a dead man that he could do whatever he wanted with Chu Fengmian. Are you done? Finally, Chu Fengmian's face showed some impatience. If you're done, kneel down. Kneel down now. This is your only chance. Chapter 596. What? You want us to kneel down? Chu Fengmian, have you lost your mind? Yan Gu sneered. Don't think that you can be arrogant just because you've had some fortuitous encounters. You're not even fit to carry my shoes. You talk too much. Chu Fengmian glanced at Yan Gu, then glanced at Mu Yezhan, and sneered. Both of you can come at me together. It's troublesome to deal with each of you one by one. Since you're here to die, why don't you be more straightforward? Chu Fengmian stood in the air with his hands behind his back and said coldly. His tone was filled with confidence. His eyes were extremely relaxed, as though he wasn't under any pressure at all. What? Chu Fengmian's words stunned all the Northern Mang Academy's disciples who were present. 1 against 2? He asked Mu Yezhan to come at him together when he's facing Yan Gu. Although Chu Fengmian is this year's newcomer king, everyone knows that the newcomer king is just a genius. The truly talented disciples, like Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan, were all selected by the elders to become inner disciples. That's why Chu Fengmian is the newcomer king. Chu Fengmian is too arrogant. He's so arrogant just because he's had some fortuitous encounters. Chu Fengmian is at the limit of the divine power realm. Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan are also at the limit of the divine power realm. Moreover, the two of them have learned the secret techniques of the elders. It's impossible for this kid to fight 1 against 1, let alone the two of them. Forget it. This guy is too arrogant. He should be taught a lesson. It's fine if he's arrogant in the outer sect, but he's asking for trouble when he's facing 2 of the top 10 disciples of the inner sect Earth ranking. Many discussions could be heard. There were countless disciples of the Northern Mang Academy standing near the mountain range to watch the battle. Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan were the disciples of the elders. Now that they've cultivated, they've attracted the attention of countless people. As for Chu Fengmian, he's just a person who's looking for death. It's only a matter of time before the disciples of the elders become seed disciples. Their aptitudes weren't bad and they've reached the limit of the divine power realm. At the same level, it was impossible for them to lose to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, show mercy. Just teach him a lesson. Bai Xian frowned and reminded him. She was also clear that these two were the ones who truly didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Now that there was no way for them to die peacefully, she could only ask Chu Fengmian to show them mercy. It doesn't matter. I'll just teach them a lesson. I won't really hurt them. Chu Fengmian said calmly. His tone was as if he did not place Yan Gu and Mai Zhan in his eyes at all. It was as if he could do whatever he wanted with them. Shameless boasting. Bai Xian, do you really think the two of us are afraid of you? It's just that I don't want to be calculative with you because you're a woman. Yan Gu looked at Bai Xian and said with a hint of lust in his eyes. I'll take care of this brat first, then I'll enjoy you. A woman like you should become this young master's woman. Really? Bai Xian looked at Yan Gu. Her eyes were extremely cold, but she did not attack. She knew that there was no need for her to do anything. Now that Yan Gu came to provoke Chu Fengmian, he was already a dead man. Even if he did not die, Chu Fengmian would teach him a lesson sooner or later. You're just an ant. You want to be a king? Chu Fengmian looked at Yan Gu and sneered. His body suddenly moved. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Yan Gu. Suddenly, he gathered spiritual energy and integrated it into his palm wind. Suddenly, he threw out a palm strike towards Yan Gu. Humph, you dare be so arrogant with such a small trick? When Yan Gu saw Chu Fengmian's attack, his eyes were filled with disdain. In his eyes, this palm strike was extremely crude. It was just a strike of pure strength. Chu Fengmian, today, this young master will show you what true martial arts are. Mysterious. Yan Gu let out a long roar. Countless spiritual energy gathered around him. The spiritual energy turned into layers of jade mirrors and integrated into his fist wind. Jade Mirror King Fist. Suddenly, Yan Gu threw out a punch. It was as if it was going to sweep across the heavens and earth. Layers of space started to collapse and the area around Chu Fengmian was about to be shattered. That punch was planning to shatter the space around Chu Fengmian and himself. It was going to crush Chu Fengmian and suppress him. Chu Fengmian could feel that the space around him was being condensed by a force. It was as if it was going to be completely sealed. Chu Fengmian had no way to escape and could only be suppressed. Ridiculous. Chu Fengmian sneered. His punch was thrown out and it clashed with Yan Gu in the air. Rumble. Rumble. Continuous explosions rang out. Surging spiritual energy clashed with each other. In the next moment, the seal of the surrounding space was broken. All the spiritual energy in Yan Gu's punch had been destroyed by Chu Fengmian's punch. When the two fists clashed, Yan Gu's strength was actually being pushed back. He could not even hold on for a moment. How is this possible? Yan Gu was actually defeated. In a clash of strength, Yan Gu was actually defeated. A trace of surprise flashed through the eyes of some of the North Sea Academy's experts present. Chu Fengmian and Yan Gu were in the same realm. They were both at the limit of the divine power realm. As for Yan Gu, he was the disciple of an elder. He had even learned the profound cultivation techniques of Beimang Academy. His strength should be above Chu Fengmian's. However, in a clash of strength, Yan Gu was actually defeated so miserably. This was an outcome that no one had expected. Damn it. How can this person be so powerful? Yan Gu kept retreating as he tried to dissolve the power of Chu Fengmian's punch. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Looks like I have underestimated this kid. However, Chu Fengmian, so what if you are powerful? In front of my Jade Emperor mirror, all of your strength is meaningless. Yan Gu let out a long howl. A mirror suddenly appeared behind him. This mirror was a simple bronze mirror. It was extremely ancient and it contained a mysterious power. The power of the Jade Emperor mirror was actually very similar to Yan Gu's spiritual energy. It was obviously a spiritual weapon that was most compatible with him. Jade Emperor Mirror. This spiritual weapon is actually in Yengu's hands? Bai Xian exclaimed in surprise. Jade Emperor Mirror is Elder Yugui's prized spiritual weapon. Although it is only a top Earth-grade spiritual weapon, its power is not inferior to a true Heaven-grade spiritual weapon. This is Elder Yugui's life-saving weapon. I can't believe he gave it to Yengu. Chapter 597. As soon as the Jade Emperor Mirror appeared, rays of rainbow-colored light shot out from the mirror and shrouded Yengu's body. Although these rays of rainbow-colored light looked weak, the power contained within them was incomparably mysterious. Even ordinary life and death realm martial artists would find it hard to break it. Chu Fengmian, this young master didn't expect your strength to reach this level. However, no matter how strong you are, it's meaningless today. Yengu looked at Chu Fengmian and laughed. Unless it's a high-level life and death realm martial artist, it's impossible to break the Jade Emperor Mirror's rays. No matter how strong you are, it's meaningless today. With the Jade Emperor Mirror as his trump card, Yengu was full of confidence and arrogance. He looked down at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, "Kneel down now and open your mind to me. I'll plant a seal on you and make you my slave forever. Then, this young master can let you live. Otherwise, you'll only end up dead today. Someone who can't even take a punch with 10% of my strength. You dare to talk nonsense?" Hearing Yengu's words, Chu Fengmian's face suddenly revealed a smile. "You dare to be arrogant with a puny spiritual tool? Even if you have the support of this spiritual tool, you're just an ant in front of me. Damn it. Chu Fengmian, it seems like you don't want to live anymore. Since you don't want to live anymore, I'll fulfill your wish." Anger appeared on Yengu's face. Just now, he had lost to Chu Fengmian in a clash of strength. This was an endless humiliation for him. He was an elder's disciple. He was a superior figure even to inner disciples, not to mention Chu Fengmian, who was just a newcomer king of outer disciples. In Yengu's heart, this was a great humiliation. If he didn't ruthlessly defeat Chu Fengmian today, he would no longer have a foothold in the North Sea Academy. An elder's disciple being defeated by a newcomer outer disciple was simply a joke. Chu Fengmian, you've already lost your last chance to live. Now, all you can wait for is death. Yengu's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. The Jade Emperor Mirror was immediately activated and turned into a ray of light. Under this light, it was as though any existence would be destroyed instantly. This was a true beam of destruction. As he roared crazily, he charged toward Chu Fengmian and bombarded him with attacks. Chu Fengmian's face was extremely calm in the face of the beam bombardment from the Jade Emperor Mirror. It seemed that there was no change in his expression. However, as Chu Fengmian's body moved, many dragon scales condensed on his skin. Ancient characters were engraved on each of the dragon scales. The countless characters connected together and formed a huge array inside Chu Fengmian's body. Above the array formation, a steady stream of power was added to Chu Fengmian's body. Ancient War Dragon Body. Now that Chu Fengmian had condensed the Ancient War Dragon Body, it meant that the Ancient War Dragon's blood essence in his body was turning into formation cores at all times, forming formation cores to increase Chu Fengmian's power. Chu Fengmian's skin had turned into a bronze color, and the aura on his body suddenly burst out. Facing the light beam of destruction, he did not dodge. Instead, he moved his feet and charged forward. What? Is Chu Fengmian planning to resist the attack of the Jade Emperor Mirror with his body? Although the Jade Emperor Mirror is a defensive spiritual tool, its offensive power is enough to surpass many Earth-grade spiritual tools. This kid is courting death by trying to resist it with his body. In everyone's opinion, Chu Fengmian must dodge the light beam from the Jade Emperor Mirror. The power of the light beam from the Jade Emperor Mirror was not inferior to many Earth-grade martial skills. No matter how strong a warrior was, it was not easy to resist it. If a life and death realm warrior were to come, he would choose to dodge and not resist it. But now, Chu Fengmian did not dodge. Instead, he faced it head-on. It seemed that he was going to resist the light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror with his body. This kind of action was crazy to the extreme. It was not crazy, but simply courting death. Everyone looked at Chu Fengmian. They felt that in the next moment, Chu Fengmian would be destroyed under the light beam. Even Yan Gu's eyes flickered, revealing a hint of ridicule. It was as if he was laughing at Chu Fengmian's recklessness. Clang! But in the next moment, the scene that appeared was completely beyond everyone's imagination. The light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror bombarded Chu Fengmian's body. Unexpectedly, the sound of a weapon expanding could be heard. The light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror poured down on Chu Fengmian's body. Unexpectedly, Chu Fengmian's body was unharmed. Even the fragments that condensed on Chu Fengmian's body were not broken. There was even a slight change. It was as if the light beam did not have any effect on Chu Fengmian's body. Using his body to resist the light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror, he was still unharmed. Is this still a human's body? Demonic beast. Even a demonic beast with a strong body would not dare to make such a crazy move. The crowd's eyeballs were about to fall out. No matter what, they did not dare to believe what was happening in front of them. Impossible. This is impossible. Yan Gu stood in the same place in a daze. His face was also extremely shocked. The light beam from the Jade Emperor mirror was actually resisted by Chu Fengmian's body. He did not rely on any means. Just using his body to resist, he was unharmed. This kind of body was simply inhuman. You dare to be impudent in front of me with such a small trick? Chu Fengmian looked at Yan Gu with a trace of contempt on his face. His current body had reached the pinnacle. Just the strength of his body alone was close to the high level of life and death realm. To deal with Yan Gu, he did not need to use spiritual power. Just his body alone was enough to kill him. Kneel down. Chu Fengmian looked at Yan Gu and suddenly waved his hand. It directly turned into an incomparably huge claw of a war dragon. It fell from the sky and directly landed on Yan Gu's head. An incomparably huge pressure pressed down on Yan Gu's body. Yan Gu suddenly activated the power of the Jade Emperor mirror, condensing more 7-colored light beams in front of him. Only then did he recover. Chu Fengmian, so what if your body is strong? Even if I can't defeat you, I will not lose. I want to see how you are going to break this Jade Emperor mirror. Yan Gu stood in the 7-colored light beams, looking at Chu Fengmian and sneered. You want me to kneel down? Even if I give you another 10,000 years, you won't have the ability to do so. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.